We're on. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a work session of the Basalt Town Council, and we will be working for about an hour and then reconvening at 6 o'clock for our regular meeting. Our work session today will deal with what is known as the first and last mile connections. RAFTA, our Roaring Fork Transit Agency, has now essentially expanded their scope and their mission to now take on improvement of the transit experience to give people assistance in getting from their home and back to their home at the end of the day from our trunk line transit service. So first and last mile can include a lot of different things. We're going to be talking about we-cycles, both regularly powered and e-bikes, and we'll talk about circulators and on-demand transit and what we can do as a community of Basalt to take advantage of this brave new world of first and last mile connectivity. I don't think connectivity is actually a word, but I kind of use it like everybody else does. So that's it. The staff has teed this up for us. So Ryan, you want to roll with it?
Sure. So I think what I'll do first.
Recording in progress.
Sorry. That's okay. Is I'll talk about the downtowner, and then Susan will talk a bit about the plan for we-cycle. And I think our goal tonight is really to get a general thumbs up or head nod from this council, or any further input on what we might do so we can bring this back to RAFTA. As you can see in your packet, you had the proposal from the downtowner. Travis Gleason is one of the principals at that firm. The mayor and I had met with him probably a month ago, 2 months ago now, and he had provided this to us, and it has not been vetted by RAFTA yet, and so those would be some of the next steps, is to have them take a look at it. We do have to make sure, as the mayor said, that the proposal would ultimately meet the goals of RAFTA's Destination 2040 money, so that they would be able to help us with the funding of this. The other piece to this is it's very much a pilot program. We don't have sustainable funding for this out of our operations, and so and as you can see from the proposal, it's somewhat limited in scope. So if we wanted to expand it more, we'd really need to look at a different funding source, which might mean asking the voters if they would approve some different funding source, and we haven't really gotten into that at all yet. But it is exciting. It's something that was highlighted in our master plan as a very high-ranking project. It meets several of the green goals that we had identified in the master plan as well. And then also, if successful, it might also help alleviate some of the traffic and parking woes that we've heard about in downtown and in Willits, because it makes taking transit that much easier, hopefully. So with that, I'll just talk a little bit about the proposal that we received. And really what this does is look at about 9 months of operation. So they contemplated no service in May, October, or November, thinking that those were sort of the shoulder season months that they wouldn't have as much demand. And it would run currently proposed from 3 to 10 p.m. Daily. So no morning service with this. Again, not sure where RAFTA is on that, if they'd really want sort of that morning and evening right now, or if they'd be okay with...
They have indicated that they would want to see morning service.
A morning service too, okay.
Yeah.
So that's something that we'd want to, work with them on. And then right now the fleet is contemplated to be 2 transit vans. And so you've got one that's ADA accessible, and that one has 8 passengers, and then another transit van that has 12 passengers. And so, I think with this one, for us, the devil's in the details on, what route makes the most sense. We have sort of three distinct neighborhoods, being the downtown, the south side, and Willits. So what makes the most sense there? They did talk about an app that's available, where you can sign up for a ride, and then they know that you're out there and wanting a ride. That's another one too that RAFTA, sort of that call-in option, that wasn't that high priority for them from what I understood. Just briefly from one of their staff members, but at any rate, that's sort of the basics of it. But this Travis Gleason, and the Downtowner service, they seem very flexible, so they can scale it up, scale it down. It's really custom tailored, and this is the same company that's operating in Aspen. We did check in with some staff there and had some good feedback on their service and the relationship with those folks. So that's also a positive. So with that, maybe I'll just stop there. I don't know, Mayor, if you have anything else to add, or Susan, if you had something to add to that. But pretty exciting, but kind of the tip of the iceberg here. So
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of go, maybe the thing just to emphasize is that having a shuttle between East and West Basalt just always kind of shows up in different responses to what do you think Basalt needs. So you notice on our list of the top 10 projects that we had in the master plan, the second highest one was a connector shuttle Old Town to Willits. And the idea of the shuttle is more like what you see in Aspen, where they have the RAFTA shuttle buses, but that is really pricey. So RAFTA had done a study, and it was, the capital costs weren't that expensive. It was $600,000 a year, but the yearly operating was $1.2 million. So this idea of a downtowner or some other kind of micro mobility thing maybe has some traction. I think it works well for a pilot program to see, does it work? We were talking about using the Bang the Table software to maybe get some more feedback, feedback from folks if we move forward and implement this in terms of what folks see themselves using. And maybe just the other thing I would just emphasize maybe is just to reiterate that it just doesn't look feasible that we would be able to fund this without having some kind of a tax measure, whether that came from, ongoing. Whether that's through RAFTA, which might be one approach, or the town of Basalt through some kind of sales tax or other mechanism. Is it, as a pilot project, it looked like if RAFTA could match us some funding, we could make it a reality, but maybe not carrying it on every year. So
Yeah, maybe a few more sort of thoughts, conversations that we've had with RAFTA. The theory of this is that we would start off with a hybrid kind of sort of modified circulator. So it would be a circulator bus during peak hours, directed principally at Southside, the Hill, and Elk Run, to try to get people to BRT stations, and the same for Willits. And so, one of the great challenges to gaining market share in terms of bus ridership is what is known in transit circles as the mode change. And what we fight, particularly in cold winter days, is that once people get in the car and once the windshield is scraped and the heater's warmed up, folks are really disinclined to, okay, I'm just going to drive 0.8 miles, park at Basalt Avenue, get out of the car, stand out in the wind, and wait for a bus that will come maybe on schedule, maybe not. And so the inclination is, I don't care how big the wait is at the airport, I'm just going to stay in my car. It's all warmed up. I got the radio going. Life's good. I'm not going to. So the first and last mile is the big next thing for transit agencies, not just here, but, you know, across the country. And so what's been styled here is something that will give us a real good sort of ground sense of people's inclination to use it and what ridership may be. So I think what would be really terrific is if we could start with 2 vans and do a circulator in the morning and afternoon hours during peak commuter times, and then run on demand for off hours. So this is pegged right now at a little under $300,000. Adding morning is obviously going to pump that up. So, you know, I mean, the flavor of this is that REFT is talking about possibly a 50-50 share. So, you know, we'd be out there for $150,000 to $200,000 to test this out. The vehicles would be, at least now the assumption is that the vehicles would be REFTA branded. So you can just picture them. So the graphics, the logo, all the messaging on these vehicles would look for the world like it's a RAFTA bus. The vehicles are owned and operated by Downtowner. It's an independent contractor. So I think I may have mentioned it to you. We had some astounding numbers presented to us about how transit agencies work around the country. RTD in Denver contracts for a little over 45% of its entire system capacity is actually arranged for through third-party contractors. They all have RAFTA uniforms, RAFTA buses, RAFTA RTD buses. But at any rate, there's nothing really unusual about this arrangement. I just, you know, I think it's a way of, you know, in a cost-effective way, really responding to the comp plan priorities, doing something people have talked about for a long time, and we'll see how it works. And I think Susan's correct. If this looks like a go, then we have to figure out how we're going to finance it long-term. But, you know, get Christy in here, she can help us out with those sales tax numbers.
And I think that's a reality that we're going to need to pay attention to a bit. This year is just with all of our capital. We've got a really tight budget going into next year, and if we kind of move this around and increase costs on it very significantly, then, you know, we'll be not, you know, paying for some other things. And so we just want to, you know, I guess we're going to need to prioritize, you know, where we are. And of course, all the projects, you know, seem to have weight in the master plan and community buy-in and that kind of thing. So and
we got WeCycle in there as well, the Electrified WeCycle program.
Are we gonna comment on this, or what's the plan?
Yeah, that's the plan.
we'd like to.
I think, Ryan, I think you were gonna say something.
Can we start with making it free from downtown to Willits and track that? I feel like there's not.
Oh, the bus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess for me, I understand the last mile, but this seems like so much money we have a bus that goes from the BRT stop here to the BRT stop in Willits, and it goes from downtown to the BRT stop in Willits. I don't know, to me, it's astonishing, and why wouldn't we just do something with a local taxi company before we commit $250,000 for 2 shuttles? It seems a lot to me, but I'm not a transit expert, so.
Yeah, I was gonna comment that I feel like we're trying to solve 2 problems here. One is the connection from Old Town to Willits, and that's the one that's explicitly called out in the Basalt master plan. And then there's the first and last mile issue, and we're trying to like cram those into one solution. And I think if there is one solution that works for both, great, but I think we need to look at those 2 issues separately. So to Ryan's point, you know, a solution to the connector shuttle could just be to make it free between Willits and Old Town, and then separately, the downtowner could be the solution to the first and last mile.
I was gonna make the same comment about the using the existing bus. What is the cost if we were to subsidize that compared to the $260 or whatever it is in the proposal? And if the downtowner can do some of the first and last mile, like RTD does, I know in some of the office parks on the south side of Denver, I mean, that might be a nice option for that part too. And and if you're getting more out of the downtowner, great, but if the bus, if paying RAFTA to do it is cheaper, I mean, we gotta look kind of what the benefits are and what are the costs for both.
I think Bill can speak to this, and then I think
Yeah.
we heard also from RAFTA, they're looking at making it free within zones, is my understanding. And so it is something that we might get in the near future, is that free service, say between here and the Willits area.
Actually, I
and-
don't think it was that way, but.
Yeah,
No,
right
it
now, we're
wasn't?
not,
It-
it's
they're-
not
they're
considered one zone.
They're revisiting their entire fare structure, and it's kind of coming up because of the RAFTA free service.
Mhm.
So they're looking at everyone. But what we heard, when we estimated as part of the Basalt Forward, doing it free, we estimated at 100,000 a year.
Yep.
But then when we talked to RAFTA, logistically, they didn't think they could make that happen, because there's just too much on the bus driver to make sure that people weren't riding all the way to Aspen
Yeah.
when they say, I'm going downtown Basalt, and they stay on the bus. So I thought we just didn't really get much traction with RAFTA on the free service, but they are maybe you heard a different conversation than
Maybe.
I was, but they're totally revisiting the fare structure from Aspen to Glenwood, and potentially, so it
Okay.
might be reduced,
Maybe
but not
reduced.
free.
What have you heard, Bill, on that front? I know for youngsters like 16 and under, they were making it
It's
free, right? Or
It's $1.
a buck, okay.
Yeah.
But no discussion on adults?
That would be up to us to bring back up again, I think.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right, sorry about
That's
that.
not, I think the problem is that, well, the conversation was focused on first and last mile, and to just add, basically the route that we already have was not really addressing the first and last mile conversation, so
Mhm.
that's probably why it didn't happen.
And can I ask, the first and last mile, are we specifically trying to hit commuters primarily? So the 3 PM to 11 PM framework doesn't really, that makes sense why RAFTA would want
Yeah.
morning.
That's, again, I think, and this will go through 11 variations on the theme before we ever get there, but the concept was, hey, we have the rolling stock, the bands are here. We dedicate them to a defined circulator route in the morning so that people can hit the key BRT schedule. And then in off hours, they become available on an on-demand basis. So if
Like on
somebody,
the app.
yeah, well, somebody's in Soper's Drive and want to get, and wants to get to Willits, they call in, and the
So
van
it's
says.
like glorified Uber.
Hmm?
A glorified Uber.
It's glorified Uber.
Okay.
It's,
An RTD.
it's actually, yeah, it's,
Mhm.
It's
So
pretty
what
cool.
is the cost estimate to do morning and, like, let's say we do the peak hours?
We don't have that right
we don't
now.
have that number. We have a number for just the evening and on demand during the day. So, I mean, if it was the council's directive, as we've heard from Ryan and Elise, we would focus on one of these, the other, and just say, hey, we want to pay for, transit access in the morning, but skip the on-demand feature. But then that doesn't seem to address what the comp plan priority was, which was to try to connect Willits to Old Town Basalt.
If you're doing a
Yeah,
pilot
flexible way.
program, I don't know, this is Basalt, so I don't think you can pick one thing. I mean, a street meets multiple needs. So if you're doing a pilot, I don't know, I think you could maybe try to do both, and then really get a lot of data about what is tracking. Because it's just a pilot program, right? You're not trying to,
And so can we logistically not get data from RAFTA, because if they were gonna provide a free service, I'm assuming you would have to have a dedicated bus. Is that the problem?
Or you put it on the drivers to be monitoring.
Which is impossible.
It is, I mean, it's gotta be impossible,
I mean,
So-
Bill, I
Or you
take
just
the
stop,
bus.
get everybody off the bus, then they have to get back on. That's the way we do it in Guatemala, that's the way it worked down
You
there.
you get a little mark on your hand.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I take the bus, and I think about, like, you know, my walk to the bus station in the morning, in the winter, it's cold. Would I use this? Is a great question. I personally would not, because it just, adding anything extra to my morning is a real pain in the ass, and having that bus going around Elk Run and everything else, I don't know, I'm just concerned that it's not gonna do what we want it to do that first last mile. Cause at least in this part of Basalt, for the most part of it, is people are relatively close to the bus. There's ways to cut through and that, and trying to send a loop all the way around to grab everybody seems difficult. And, cause, I mean, honestly, the amount of BRTs that go are huge in the morning. And I don't know, I try to see it because when my wife lived up in Aspen Centennial, I would take that Hunter Creek bus to get to downtown. And, you know, it's, if you think about it, it's almost the same distance. And why did I take, what?
It's just the one bus?
It is just one bus to get downtown. So I don't know. I'm struggling with the cost and would we get use. The downtowner would get use as a standalone app. I totally believe that would get a lot of use. If I could call it and get a ride to Willits and then call it and get a ride back, you know, so I go to dinner at night and, you know, with the fact that do you want to be drinking, do you want to do all this stuff, I think it would be used.
To go
So-
to Taka?
What? And to God, I mean, to me, it's like trying to figure out the
Yeah.
two different things is tough for me
Because
right now.
I wouldn't wanna take, for one, I live close enough to a bus stop, it wouldn't matter, but if I wanted to come over here, I could either get on RAFTA, but it's gotta be dedicated, cause if I gotta take one from my house to a BRT to there, you've burned 45 minutes on bus rides.
Yeah.
I could've walked.
I had an humorous exchange from somebody up on Homestead, and I said, you know, just testing the waters, you know, would you ride something like this? And he said, well, you know what, I probably would. He said, but then I have a Ford, so that's why I would take the bus in the morning, because, you know, it doesn't always start. So at any rate, you know, it sounds like the sentiment might be that the on-demand feature of this might be worth, that's something we could test in a pilot and see how that works, and then.
But how much is that gonna cost?
Yeah, I was gonna say, could you
Well, that's
describe
what's priced there.
I mean, what are you imagining with on-demand?
Yeah, but I mean, on demand from 3 to 10, and we're,
Right.
I don't,
I mean, it
you
gives
know,
you
that's still
an
pretty
order of
spendy.
magnitude. I don't know what the.
Cause are we buying the vans for this company?
No, they own all of the, you know, the vans, and they do the staffing.
But the on-demand further, I mean, on-demand from what point of origin to which destination? If I call for on-demand, are they gonna come up to Ridge Road and pick me up? I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, they
Yeah.
would, no, they would.
Yeah.
That's the point.
That's the point, yeah,
That's
they
what the
would.
downtowner does. The downtowner in Aspen,
That goes to Red Mountain,
Yeah.
it picks people up at
Yeah, so if
Red
you're
Mountain, takes
living
them
up in
downtown.
Aspen Junction, it picks you up. You live in Oak Grove Townhomes, picks you up.
Especially if they knew you were on the town council, I bet you that
A quick comment, I think it would be worth surveying the last mile part, though. I mean, there's like, ADA, that element to it, right? There could be a ridership that's not being served, you know, getting to the
Yeah.
buses and things like that. So I think, I mean, a survey would be a lower cost way of banging the table or whatever. I think we should explore that a little bit.
Just for curiosity's sake, what private sector solutions are there? I mean, is there anything that is impeding Uber and Lyft from offering service here? Because setting up a private taxi service doesn't seem like it's what towns should be doing, particularly if you're providing home to destination. I gotta wonder.
Yeah, I
how
mean,
that-
we did try Uber and it didn't work.
I think
so.
it's just the number of rides, you know. They come in on big weekends, like in Aspen, Food and Wine, historically, there's been, people come out of Denver, but like on a normal basis, it doesn't seem there's enough demand, but, the other thing, if we did the on-demand only, I don't think that on-demand, if you were following, if you want funding from RAFTA, I think that on-demand's going to have to take you from Ridge Road to the bus stop, not from Ridge Road to Willits, where you ultimately want to get. I think that's the trick,
Could
that
be
if
that,
you were
could be.
killing two birds with one stone, like Elise said, that's the limitation. Otherwise, we're on our own, perhaps, with funding it. So, something to think about there.
And what was the conversations around having a circulator similar to Carbondale? That's
That's like $1 million, $600,000 for the bus. I
And
thought
the
that's
only
what
reason
you just said,
Carbondale
right?
got it is because their BRT is not on Highway 82. So like, that's
Yeah.
how they got,
But they put money into it.
Yeah,
No, they don't.
no,
Carbondale
Rafta,
Grant?
Rafta strictly funds that entire thing.
Yeah, RAFTA funds it because of,
Because the town said, here's a piece of property, the bus is gonna pull off of 82,
So
go
not gonna
there,
to
pick up
town.
people. That's how Rafta got it, or
And-
Carbondale got it.
And also, they always had a circulator, I mean, the local bus always drove way around town, so, it's kind of a combined.
See, I've always wondered, if they could eliminate the local coming through downtown Basalt and then replace it with a circulator, because that's essentially what Carbondale has. They don't, there's no local that goes, I guess, no, the local doesn't go through town. It
Not
still-
anymore.
Still
It used
still
to.
goes to the,
Yeah. But I think that's when we were doing it, 10 years ago, the first time we did a kind of a cost survey, we end up kind of concluding that having that local service was just so key. And in terms of RAFTA was picking up the cost, and the town of Basalt wasn't. And so when you were looking at the shuttle service, they were really looking at the town of Basalt significantly coming to the table with funding. So,
Because it's different.
Because our
Carbondale is just a little loop to get to downtown. Ours would have to go all the way into Willits, all the way through. It was a much different, because we looked at this a long time ago. Because
we've done it twice.
Yeah, we've done it twice. We looked at this a long time ago to try to see if we could do a circulator instead of a local. But it's just, because the local,
all our local bus stops are on Highway 82,
except for this one.
except for that one.
Right,
Sewell
so
and
it's
Epsom
not like
Junction.
we could just magically take it and extend it, because that's the whole point of the circulator,
Yeah.
is we have to take it through Willits. and-
South side
Yeah.
and through Willits, down on Willits Lane and, kind of through the downtown area in Elk Run and.
but we definitely need to ask people, back to David's comment, we need to ask people what they want, how they'd use it. And I think, Bang the Table is perfect for that, so let's for sure start there.
Yeah, and you could still continue your conversations with RAFTA, because maybe getting some clarity about what is it that tests their limits of whether they're gonna be a funding partner. Because if we're on our own, I would say we couldn't do it. I mean, I
Well, and
think,
I'd love to know for sure that Southside would actually use it. My suspicions is they wouldn't.
Either one? You mean either on demand or the circulator?
Maybe on demand more so, but kind of specifically more like the Uber experience of like, I want to go to Taka.
Yeah.
But I don't see Southside using it to get to the bus stop.
right.
Probably not. That's why this would be a
Yeah.
circulator.
but to get to Ka, they might.
Right.
Yeah. If you want to go to the call and drink and you don't want to drive, that's when you call demand. On demand.
But honestly, I mean, before COVID, we were doing it by the bus. You just go to the local and you grab it, and you head there, and it costs $1 or $2. Really, I don't know, I like the survey idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I like this. This, to me, what I've seen with e-bikes is just gone nuts, but with getting to and from houses, but I don't know.
The other thing that was in your packet too is RAFTA is doing a study right now on last mile, infrastructure.
Funding, yeah.
And funding, and that's due out December, January. you know, they do like the idea of, you know, being proactive, and so they like the conversation that we're having. Carbondale's having a similar conversation that we are having here as well. And so I guess just for sake of time, Bill and I were going to meet with Travis one more time, so we could kind of talk a little bit about these different options. We could talk about circulator only, that might kind of go through downtown and have a downtown pickup, one south side pickup, one, you know, Takaw pickup, or, you know, something that just goes around. And we could talk about this on-demand thing that would actually be an Uber thing. And then we could talk a little bit more about sort of the proposal that we have, but do a morning, evening thing, and then we could just bring that information back to you without any, you know, commitments. But I guess it sounds like putting it out into the community to get a better understanding of what people want is sort of what I'm hearing the council was also interested in.
I think more information all the way around.
Yeah.
Like, you know, exploring the cost options of what's presented here, but
And then one more thought is, you know, when we did the Basalt master plan, a lot of the feedback on the connector shuttle between Old Town and Willits was based on retailers wanting to move people back and forth between the two retail hubs. So maybe another idea would be some sort of coupon or something that the businesses had that they could give out that would then cover the cost of that ride. And then that's a way of keeping track of, you know.
Or could we print out a
If you did a
pass?
bus type thing?
Right,
Is that
yeah,
what you mean?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Not
So
the circulator, but riding the
So
bus.
just riding the local
Got it, okay.
between, or BRT, I guess, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But like, some sort of like coupon or something, you know, that businesses could have that they would, you know, that they could provide to folks to move them back and forth between the retail hubs.
And I don't want to do any more solutioning, there's another
Yeah.
made-up word, but it would be interesting to find out, you know, hybrid options that could be done with circulator and on-demand. There's probably a way to do that to a certain degree, and that, you know, depending on the results of surveys and what people want, there could be a way to use the same equipment and the same operation and have a hybrid approach.
Yeah.
And I'm just really curious to see which neighborhoods, you know, show
Yeah, it would be.
high
yeah.
interest or low
Yep.
interest or no interest.
Should we jump to WeCycle real quickly? Because
One real quick thing,
Uh.
could we also reach out to the local taxi companies and see what type of subsidized taxi we could provide?
yeah, sure,
Like-
sure.
If our main goal in the downtowner is to go between Basalt and Willits, and we put out a thing that says, hey, you can get a 75% off taxi or a free taxi for the month of December from Basalt to Willits, that's gonna give us something more tangible than just,
Glenn, didn't your brother try a taxi business in Basalt?
Yep, didn't work.
There you go.
I was gonna say, I don't think there's a local taxi in this area.
well, you can get, I mean,
Aspen one.
In
Yeah.
Aspen, right?
Yeah, you
Aspen,
get High
Glenwood,
Mountain
you
taxi.
can, there's High Mountain, there's Valley Taxi, you can get a taxi, they'll fight you, but you can get a taxi.
And they're not cheap.
It's not cheap at all.
I mean,
It's like $45 to get from here to Willits.
it was $20 to get from my house, or from Willits to my house. Which, yeah, it's a lot, but,
Gotta get back.
well, yeah, my wife left.
Well, and maybe that's another good question
That
for
was
the
a good
survey,
idea.
is willingness to pay.
Yeah. Well, let's do WeCycle, and we have time, we can circle back.
I mean, we were assuming this was no fair. I think, honestly, you put a fair on this. and-
Well, but we said we're gonna have to come up with some cost solutions too, so.
Let's do WeCycle.
Okay, so WeCycle, we're talking about expanding the WeCycle fleet. We've had WeCycle, we started it in 2016, and so there's a couple things that are going on. And the big thing is that, you know, all the voters passed the Destination 2040 a while back, and RAFT is working on this study. This study from Tool Design, and they're gonna be coming to RAFTA in December, January, more about how that money is going to be spent and sent out to the local governments and how that will work. But we've been working with RAFTA and different communities around Basalt in terms of expanding our system. So that's kind of what we wanted to fly through. This is a slide presentation from Mirta, and she's talking about our objective is to use our existing infrastructure and expand the service area. The exciting thing here is that we're talking about using e-bikes and solar powered stations in an effective way. Catherine? This just shows you our existing 24 bikes, and there's a little, on your packet, you can see that little electric bolt on Basalt Avenue. So this year we did a pilot program there was one in Aspen and there was one in Basalt using solar powered stations to kind of charge our e-bikes, but it's only through 2022. Next slide. So we actually are the first in Colorado and the only operational one in the United States with this solar powered e-charging pilot. And remember, this isn't just Basalt, this is the Airport Business Center has one too, but this was Core stepped up, Skyhook Solar, PBSC Urban Solutions, and the City of Aspen, the Airport Business Center all kind of went in to do this pilot program. And it was really successful in Basalt. Next slide. The interesting thing is that in the Basalt fleet, 14% of the bikes that are WeCycle bikes are e-bikes, but 43% all rides were on e-bikes. And that was a different, much higher percentage in Basalt than in the Aspen area. And I think it's because the Basalt neighborhoods are so far away from each other that the e-bikes were very popular. The biggest new route was kind of that hub, which is the Aspen Ski Company housing to the Willits BRT, and then the School Street to the BRT stop, and then Cypress View Apartments to the BRT stops were like the most popular routes. Next one. So our two hot spots, I'm talking fast, so tell me if I talk too fast, but our two hot spots that we want to take advantage of is Takaw and get people used to taking WeCycle and the bus to get to Takaw events right away when they're starting their real opening of their facility. And then the other one was Basalt Vista. So we've been, planning staff's been working hard with Basalt Vista on the exact location of the WeCycle station. They had to locate one but not fund it. So we've been working with the school. So it's getting a station with the Basalt Vista Affordable Housing Project. And the interesting thing, because it wasn't intuitive to me, but what WeCycle wants to do is repurpose the two BRT bike share stations and make those the e-power stations, and then you take those and move them to Basalt Vista and Takaw. And that way, the riders during the day take the bus and they can be charged on the e-bike stations. So that's how that works. The trick of this is that, so in Basalt, the capital is about 103,500. That would be 55,000 for the two e-bike stations, and then 34,500 for 26 e-bikes. And the reason, there's a minimum order, so that's what one reason that kicks in, that we don't say, why don't we have it? Next slide, Catherine.
There's something missing there that doesn't add up.
Yeah, the capital components don't equal.
Well,
Or normal
with
funding,
some
the
of the
20,000.
operations,
You
is that
know,
what's missing? 'Cause this
we
was-
might have reduced something at the end. I think it may be more than it's the 89,500. But let me double check on that, because we were switching things back and forth. Originally, we were gonna try to package it with Aspen, and we kind of switched things at the last minute. But why don't you go to the next
And just
slide.
related to that, since somebody said operations, is there an incremental related?
I'll
operation
circle
cost?
back on that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah. Next one. Oh, that's the last one. So kind of how this works is that you have to put your order in for your bikes in October. So we're planning on using Destination 2040 funding. So, what we've been doing is talking to Raft about them ordering the bikes, and then we're, kind of plugging in that we'll get money out of the Destination 2040 funding. And our discussion so far, we're kind of hopeful that we can use, so we would be totally using Destination 2040 money. They are wanting a match, and we're hoping to use our existing facilities kind of as our match that we've been kind of funding from since 2016. And then the other piece is the operation piece, and I'll say it, and then maybe Ryan can kind of step in if I kind of say it wrong, but again, we're kind of banking on that our share of the 2040 funding for operation would be covering the operational costs. And if they weren't, then we would have to circle back. We did increase in the draft budget like $10,000 more for recycle for operation costs, but there is more cost for maintaining e-bikes and the solar powered stations. And actually, we wouldn't be buying the solar powered stations. You actually rent them as apparently the better system because you can stay abreast of technology then. So did I say that accurate enough?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we had a really good discussion with RAFTA about it, and then City of Aspen was part of that phone call, and, you know, they are, as Susan said, they're looking to create equity in the system, and they understand that because there's a desire perhaps to expand WeCycle to other towns within the system, that we've been investing for, 6 years now, that investment would be recognized by RAFTA as a contribution. And sort of our pro rata share into the expansion. So, it seems like this is a really great deal, as we saw from, the stats. A lot of the rides are on these e-bikes. And so, one, I guess, hindrance on this as a last mile option is that they don't operate in the winter, so they come on basically through November, I think is when they're starting to pull them, and then they'll bring them back in late March, April. They just kind of, there's not a set date, I don't think. I think
April,
they just
May.
kind of
April, May.
do it by, when they feel like the snow's melting in town. So anyway, what we're looking for here is just sort of a thumbs up, thumbs down from council on, should we pursue this? The issue, if we don't go after the purchase of the bikes right now, is that they won't be here for next season. And so we're just having to bet on the come, but the threshold here as far as dollars isn't tremendous for us. So we felt like the risk was worth the reward.
I have a question for it.
Yeah.
What is a regular, I'm all for the solar powered stations, but what's a regular station cost? Like a regular, plug-in power station?
Don't know.
I would love to see that. And then can we also get the unique rides? Like the percentages are great, but if you had 100 rides and 43 of them were on e-bikes, that's 43,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I know that, because
Yeah.
I know they have the stats, because they always send it out
They
in
do.
their Christmas card,
Yeah.
which I appreciate.
They have the stats. What I don't know is if we'll ask for if they sought pricing with hardwiring it, but I think part of the issue is getting access to electric, and then who pays that electric bill, and where are you gonna do it at that BRT? I don't know if that changes where they can locate it or
Yeah.
not. So, but we'll ask.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess the only thing is that, what we were heading into is RAFTA meets like October 9th. And so we were trying to give some direction to Dan, cause he's gonna need to
I'm good.
ask so that's why the timing was. So we won't have another meeting before RAFTA meets. So we kinda wanted to, be able to give some direction to.
This is on the agenda for the October meeting, so
Yeah,
that's
yep.
October 14th, I think.
Can I ask a stupid question? Aren't all of the, not all, but the majority of the folks up at Basalt Vista teachers here in Basalt?
No,
Not
no,
necessarily.
they might be teachers, but they
They're
work
not all
up in the
teachers.
Aspen School District, they work
Oh,
in
okay.
Carbondale, they work, yeah. And remember, half of them are
They don't
school district, and they can be, you know,
District-wide.
yeah, district-wide, and
And
then
then-
half of them are Picken County,
Yeah, right.
So we,
Um,
oh, sorry.
yeah.
What?
Short commute.
And,
Well,
No, it's not.
if they were, that wouldn't make sense. So that's why I'm asking a stupid question.
it isn't a stupid question, and keep in mind, that was one of the, I think one of the efforts, in trying to work with the school too, is, and it's actually, the new location's actually located on the school property. So kind of trying to meet both teacher needs and the older kids.
So I want to put a thumb up, but is it 103.5 or 89.5? Do we know what, not, it's not that
I don't
different.
think I can answer that
But-
question.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, let's,
okay.
yeah, a little clarity
Yeah,
on that.
yeah, we'll get that clarity, yeah.
Thanks.
So far I saw, like,
No, I think either way, it's a valuable investment to expand our stock of recycles, whether electric or non-electric, so,
okay,
yeah, I'd support this.
We'll follow up with an email on that mistake for you guys.
So we're gonna meet with Travis, we'll meet with Dan, we'll get a little further clarification on what RAFTA's role might be, what a pure on-demand system might cost if we added morning hours to it, and, we'll get a little bigger, you know, a little more detail on the recycle program.
Yep.
Cool.
Good stuff, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
10 minutes to chow down, is there?
Yep. I've got copies of the
Get some indigestion.
All right.
We're on.
Great, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, or evening. Welcome to Basalt Town Council. This is our regularly scheduled council meeting for September 28, 2021. And I know we have a good number of folks in the audience that I think are going to want to address council on phase 5s at Cypress Meadows. And I just want to advise you, we do have a few orders of business to take care of before we'll be getting to that item, but we'll move as quickly as we can. So the first order of business for tonight is call roll for council.
Okay. Do not seem to be collecting here. I'm not sure why, Amy. It doesn't seem to be time stamping. Do you have any thoughts on why it's not doing that? That would be helpful. I've sent them all over already. But they're not time stamping. Okay, roll call. I've done that, thanks. Yeah. Bill Kane,
No, like literally.
Here.
right now.
Gary Tenenbaum,
Here.
Bill Infante,
Here.
welcome back. Glenn Drummond,
Here.
David Knight,
Here.
Elise Hoddle.
Present.
Thank you, David Slack.
Ryan Slack,
I mean, Ryan Slack, I'm sorry.
I'm here.
Boy, I can't get my council
That was
straight.
awesome.
My apologies. Well, the A-team is all present tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Our first order of business then will be to take up the consent agenda, which consists of 4 items. Minutes from September 14th. 2B, the special event activity permit for Aspen Valley Marathon, half marathon, and 5K race on Saturday, October 16th. The next is P&Z appointments. We completed those interviews at the last meeting. And then the last is the RAFTA appointment. We have to take up the appointment of David Knight as a regular member for the Covenant Enforcement Commission for the Rio Grande right-of-way as it travels up and down the valley. So is there a motion from council to approve the consent agenda, or in the alternative, does anybody want to take anything off consent for further discussion?
Mayor, I move that town council adopt the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, no dissent, so that covers that. The next order of business is to hear from the public. And let me explain, this is a time of the meeting where we'll take public comment, but comment that is not related to a matter that's actually on our agenda tonight. So if you would like to address council about a matter that we're not going to be discussing in more detail tonight, this is your opportunity. And we are operating on a hybrid basis, so we will take comment from people in the audience, and we're also open to call-ins. So people that want to address council via Zoom, we have a call-in feature. So is there anyone like to address council on a matter that is not on the agenda tonight? Okay.
And maybe just to repeat that if the easiest way, if you're participating by Zoom, is the first sheet of the agenda that's in the Agenda Center, has a link for the Zoom invitation, and you can click that link and I'll lead you through. The other thing that you can do is dial 1-346-248-7799, and the webinar ID is 863-0759-7992. And just to note that we do have 4 panelists. Is everybody accounted for, Pam? No one wants to speak during this time, correct?
I only have one attendee, and that's Mike Kostrowski.
Okay. Okay, and I'm sure that he's probably here for
Another
Cypress Meadows
item.
Parcel 5.
Yes.
So we're gonna assume that. So I think we're good.
Okay. So hearing no comment, we will then turn to mayor and council reports and comments. So anybody from council have any report they'd like to provide or update, commentary? Elise Hoddle?
So you guys all received an email, I think, from Diana Furmansky introducing herself from the Soper Sun. And she had, oh, you are here. Well, you should have come up during public comment. Introduce yourself. No, I just got here this minute. Okay. Hi, I'm Diana. You gotta come up.
Thank you very much. I'm Diana Hermansky, and I am the newest reporter at the Soper Sun. And the Soper Sun has wanted to cover these meetings, but we have not been able to because of a staff shortage. So I am very, very happy to be here. And I meant to come earlier to meet each of you individually, but I was stuck in traffic in Grand Junction. So thank you very, very much. And I'm looking forward to covering the meetings here.
Well, welcome and thanks for coming.
It's my pleasure.
These are wonderful meetings and very
And,
entertaining.
all town council meetings are just really exciting, so I begged for this assignment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we were at mayor council comments. Any?
Are you still?
Well,
That
she had
was it.
emailed me that she didn't know if she was gonna make it, so I was just gonna say that.
Okay, we'll turn to the manager's report.
The one thing that I wanted to just discuss with you all is an update, and then just to make sure that you were all aware of some cost increase from what we had thought when we did our budget last year. We're looking to start a project that is actually partnership project with the tree farm development. There was a obligation by that developer and then also by the Willits developer to ultimately put in conduit and fiber optic from Elgibel all the way to Original. And that's the purpose of that, is to sync the traffic lights through there so that you get a better progression of movement of traffic by the progression of lights. But we also looked at tacking on to that to put in extra conduit that the town would own to do that same run. And so we did get our developer contribution. We had $240,000 in the budget, and the proposal that we have from Heil Construction is $274,000, and that would get us that run of conduit. There is another $20,000 that's been spent to date by the tree farm developer that we would share in the cost for soft costs for engineering and such. So that does exceed what we had in the budget. We've chatted with Christie in finance, and we would look at using restricted funding to make up the difference out of the Willits Rita. So if there's no objections, they're actually looking to get started pretty quickly, but we'd probably come back. We're looking at doing some kind of contract with that developer. The good news is they're running the entire project, so it wouldn't be us in charge of that. And, Catherine, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I guess I just add that we will have to.
You need to get on the microphone, sorry.
I'll just add that we will also be working with Roaring Fork Engineering. We'll have to obtain a CDOT utility permit for that work. They didn't need a permit because, as Ryan mentioned, the fiber was for exclusively their lights. So since we will be owner of this empty conduit that will be available to internet service providers, we'll have to get a CDOT permit for that work. So that would be the only other thing to add, but that shouldn't be a big deal. We're already in communication with CDOT on that, so.
Okay. Questions of manager on our fiber project? Budget? Okay. Anything else, Ryan?
Excuse me, no, Mayor.
Okay. Great. Well, that completes manager's report. That turns us to council actions. We have a series of marijuana licenses to take up here, so we'll begin with item 6A. This is a public hearing and review for renewal of RFSCB LLC, doing business as Roots RX recreational marijuana license located at 165 Southside Drive. Pam Schilling, our town clerk, will handle this
And Rob.
permit application. application.
So our applicant here for the renewal is present this evening, Rob Holmes. This is a public hearing, so if council has any questions based on any of the comments from the investigating agencies, council can ask those questions. Rob and I can try and respond to those. But staff has no opposition to a renewal for this application of Roots RX located at 165 Southside Drive.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant for Roots? This is a public hearing, so we need to open this up for public comment.
Yes. Sorry, I was just looking at my, someone texted me, but the easiest thing to do is to call 1-346-248-7799, and the webinar ID is 863-0759-7992, or you can hit your Zoom link. This is the first page on the agenda. But we didn't get notice before the meeting that anyone wanted to speak on the item, and Pam, you're not showing that anyone wanted to speak. And I did get a text, but it was on something else, so I think we're good.
And Rob, do you have any comments on your renewal for the year?
I'm good.
Okay.
We'll start year 8 with you guys. Great, thank you.
Okay, with that, if there are no other comments from the audience, no comments from council. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm
Bill.
just curious how business was during the year of COVID.
Our sales across our 6 stores were up 30% last year. People received a lot of money and had a lot of time on their hands. They relaxed.
2021 was the same story, it just continued?
You know, I would say across the state, sales have leveled off in August and September, where I think you're actually seeing a decline as people are going back to work, and federal funding for people staying at home has dissipated. So.
Excuse me, could you repeat that? I didn't hear what you said about the increase in sales or the decrease.
I said our sales were up last year throughout COVID. They were off in March and April when we went through shutdown, but as people got more comfortable going out of their homes and entering into stores, we had an increase in sales. And council asked if that had continued through this year, and it did through the first quarter and a half. And then I would say across the state, sales have declined, probably August and September, as federal funding has put people back into the workforce.
Okay. With that, there are no further questions. I would entertain a motion to approve the license renewal for Roots RX.
Mayor, I move the town council approve the renewal of the recreational marijuana license for RFSCB LLC DBA Roots RX located at 165 Southside Drive, Basalt.
Second.
David.
Second, David. So we should call the roll on this, I presume.
Mr. Mayor, you can do a voice vote on this action and all actions tonight. We have all council people present, and none of the items on the agenda are for appropriating money, so.
You take the night off now, Pam. Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Okay, thank you. We move to item 6B.
Thanks, Rob.
This is a public hearing and review for renewal of Down Valley HYH, D being as Good People, medical marijuana license located at 175 Midland Avenue, Unit 110, Basalt. So, Pam?
Yes, so Justin is joining us via Zoom. We need to turn on our TV over here.
Yeah.
Sorry. And Kale is here joining us in person. Thank you, Ryan.
I like doing it this way.
No, I need
So
to
Pa-
also-
Is
You
that
need
too
to go
low,
up.
Amy?
Yeah,
Still see-
Amy,
What's
I think
that?
Amy was
You
saying,
can't see us.
Camera.
yeah.
Oh, is it in the way of the camera?
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, you can see the bottom of it.
Yep.
Ready, go.
There she goes.
Yep.
Okay,
So,
I like took- right,
okay.
right.
okay.
Pam, or do you want to make an introduction, or would you like
Sure.
the?
Again, we have a public hearing on this renewal. Comments from the investigating agencies are listed in the memo. The applicant is present to address any questions or concerns. Staff has no concerns on this renewal for the medical marijuana license for Down Valley HYH, Good People, located at 175 Midland, 110, Unit 110. Kale is here to answer any
All right.
questions, and again, we do have a public hearing.
Sure. Would you like to make any comments before we gather public comment?
No, I don't think so. It's
Okay.
good to be, it's hard to believe another year's gone by. That's what I can say, but
Great.
things are
Okay.
good.
Fair enough. So we will open this item for public hearing, and people can comment from the audience or electronically call
And-
in.
Just a reminder, there's a link on the first page on the Agenda Center for attending the Zoom link, or you can call 1-346-248-7799, and the webinar ID is 863-0759-7992, and we haven't had any additional attendees show on the sheet, and we didn't have anybody before the meeting indicating that they wanted to speak on the item.
No, but Justin has unmuted and put his camera on. Do you have any comments, Justin, while you're here?
Got nothing.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay. Hearing no public comment, then I would entertain a motion to approve Down Valley HYH medical marijuana license.
Mayor, I move the town council approve the renewal of Down Valley HYH DBA Good People Medical Marijuana License located at 175 Midland Avenue, unit number 110.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. Item 6D, continued public, item 6C, public hearing and review renewal for Down Valley HYH DBA Good People for recreational marijuana license located at 175 Midland Avenue, Unit 210. So, I assume we have the same lineup here?
Pretty much the same comments. We did have an incident back in 2019, which did not get adjudicated until this year, I believe. Or
Correct,
yeah, between the renewal of last year and this year. And so it is noted on here, the applicants have taken care of the matter. They've paid their fine. Their employee voluntarily gave up their license. So that item has been resolved at this time. And staff, again, has no concerns with a renewal of the recreational marijuana license for Down Valley HYH Good People located at 175 Midland, Unit 110.
Comments from the licensee? None?
I saw you shaking your head at the question that Bill posed to the last applicant. Did you find that to be the case as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Very consistent. And it was kind of a funny in-house joke for us because we knew exactly when people received their checks from the government because sales would skyrocket the next day. But yeah, it's what he said is very true. Everything went up, and over the past couple months, things have really just started to get back to normal without the elevated sales. And I think that is because of people going back to work and lack of government funds coming out. But yeah, it was some funny comic relief for us, actually, in the shop.
So we have to open the public hearing.
Yeah, let's open the public hearing, and anyone is free to comment from our audience or can call in and connect electronically.
And I already made an announcement on how to participate. We don't have anybody else indicating that they wanted to join the meeting, so I think,
Correct. Yes,
I think we're good.
I think we're good.
All right, well, thank you. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the Down Valley Good People recreational marijuana license.
I'm gonna go 3 for 3.
Go for it.
Mayor, I move the town council approve the renewal of Down Valley HYH DBA Good People recreational marijuana license located at 175 Midland Avenue, unit number 210.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good?
Good work.
Very much.
Very
Thank you,
appreciate
Cale.
it.
Thank you,
Presentation.
Justin.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cale.
So, I think we need a second to set up the next item.
Okay, very good.
Make sure those guys are coming in.
Thanks.
While Susan's setting up, let me just talk to folks in the audience here. We are going to take the Phase 5 of Willits, Cypress Meadows back up again tonight. I know a good number of you want to speak, and we will certainly entertain that. I just want you to know that the council is well aware of the site plan, the road network, the desire for additional access to Willits Lane. I think there is great understanding and sympathy for the road interior. So I would just in making your comments, don't assume that we're kind of covering this for the first time. We spent a fair amount of time on this last week. So many of you in the audience weren't here last week. So try to be understanding that we've been through this material pretty extensively. So we know that there's grave concern about the interior circulation road coming off of Evans between buildings 2 and 3 at Park Modern. And, so council's attention has been gotten. So when you speak, we're going to be asking you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And this is out of deference to fellow speakers from your group. And then we have other hearing matters tonight, too, that's going to take us pretty late. So we're going to ask you to be concise, make your comments. You will be limited to 3 minutes, so that's going to be the ground rule. So with that, staff, you got this?
Yeah, Mayor, could you read the agenda item, or would you like me to read it?
I'll read it, that's fine.
Yeah.
So this is item 60. This is a continued public hearing and resolution number 40, series of 2021, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, granting subdivision PUD sketch plan approval to construct 155 dwelling units on parcel 5, Cypress Meadows subdivision PUD. So James Lint.
And James is participating by Zoom because he wasn't feeling up to par, and so he's doing this from his office. So James, you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, thank you. This is a continued public hearing on the sketch plan PUD application submitted by Possum Co. LLC to construct 155 dwelling units on parcel 5 of Cypress Meadows. As was noted at the last meeting, the property is located between Park Modern Development and Evans Road and the Basalt Industrial Park to the south. And it's also between Willits Lane and the Willits Lake. It's about 12 acres of property. The review process is a PUD which requires 3 rounds of review by the P&Z and Town Council. This is the initial round of review, the sketch plan review. Staff has included draft resolution in the packet for consideration. Once again, the proposal is for 155 dwelling units in 9 separate buildings, of which 44 of the units are proposed to be deed restricted as affordable housing in these 2 buildings down here, as was described at the last meeting. In addition, the applicants have proposed to finish the lake as well as the trail around the lake, as it's only finished on the east side currently, and the lake is not completed either. The applicants proposed more detail on that at the last meeting. This evening, staff would like to highlight the discussion items that were identified for P&Z's review, and then staff would recommend taking additional applicant comments and then public comments, as it is a continued public hearing. And then staff would recommend council provide
Recording in progress.
The discussion items that are identified in the P&Z memos that were in your previous packet as well as this packet are outlined here. The first is consistency with the master plan. The property is designated medium-density residential, which is known as MDR, with an affordable housing overlay. It's also located in the town's urban growth boundary. In the 2007 and 2020 master plans, it includes a density range of up to 155 dwelling units on the site. And this was generally derived from what the R4 zone district would permit on the site based on the minimum lot size after you net out the proposed right-of-way. And the applicant also went over the history on the unit count projections at the last meeting for parcel 5. But just to remind you, essentially there was a development application that was filed in 2002 and 2003 for 176 units. And the deliberations at that time indicated that the most units that the town would accept was 155. And so up to 155 dwelling units were then included in the 2007 and 2020 master plans, and all the infrastructure planning, such as traffic study and access permits, since that time reflected the 155 units. Additional discussion items included consistency with the R4 zone district. The applicants are proposing to meet the maximum FAR in the R4 zone district of 0.5 to 1. They're proposing building heights of 39 feet to the top of the structure, which is 4 feet over the R4 zoning height limit, but it's consistent with the Park Modern development adjacent to the property. And as was noted, they're generally consistent with the R4 zone district density related to the minimum lot size in R4 after you net out the right-of-way. With regards to the affordable housing, the affordable housing is proposed at 28% of the overall number of units, as 44 units are proposed to be deed restricted. The applicants are also proposing a 0.75% real estate transfer assessment that would be used for affordable housing purposes. The Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as BOC, were satisfied with the affordable housing composition, and they were interested in the timing and phasing of the affordable housing. The applicants have proposed in their application that the first building, and then go to the site plan here, the first building of 22 affordable housing units will be built before obtaining certificates of occupancy on the third free market building in the project. Staff identified that we would like to see if the first affordable housing building could be expedited to be created before the second building of free market would be CO'd. And this concept was discussed. There's a condition in the draft resolution that the applicant would study this potential to expedite the first affordable housing building as part of their preliminary plan application. The Basalt Affordable Community Housing Committee, which is BOC, completed their recommendation on the sketch. They recommended that the P&Z, BOC, and Town Council actually have policy discussions outside the realm of this application on affordable housing parking requirements, because they felt it could be important to look at adjustments to that in order to try to get more family-style units. And so that would be a council conversation. Other discussion items that came about as part of the P&Z's review included the community benefits. The applicants have proposed to finish the lake and the path around the lake, as well as to build a playground adjacent to the affordable housing buildings. And the original Cypress Meadows real estate transfer assessment, which is 1%, that's applied to the rest of Willits, is also applicable to this parcel, so that gets carried over as part of the community benefits. In terms of access and parking, as we described, the applicants have proposed access from Evans Road at this point, and then they propose to swing it around all the way to connect up with East Valley Road on the east side. And the proposal includes an emergency access onto Willets Lane that would be gated off from the project. This varies from the original access road that was planned from Evans Road to Willets Lane that was dedicated in terms of the right-of-way. And so the applicants have provided a traffic report that indicates that the intersections that were served by, that would be served for this development would still operate at an acceptable level of service, even though you'd have a kind of change from the original program for the access points. Staff had Charlier and Associates out of Denver that the town has worked with in the past look at the traffic report. Charlier has recommended at the sketch plan level that there be a requirement that the applicants update the traffic counts in the time period of September to see how the actual traffic counts measure up to the Cypress Meadows traffic projections that were done in the prior reports in 2006 and 2015. So the applicants have been doing traffic counts, and there would be a new traffic report that would be required for the preliminary plan application as part of the draft conditions. With regards to parking, the applicants are proposing to meet the parking requirements for the free market buildings and parking garages under those buildings, as you can see in the site plan. They have also proposed for the affordable housing parking requirements to be met with this surface parking area adjacent to the affordable housing buildings. And they propose for the guest parking for the free market units to be on street, as has been the case with some other developments. In terms of other discussion items, as was noted, they propose to complete the lake. Currently, the lake drops off pretty steeply, and so the applicants at the staff request have identified a place for potential access into the lake, and the post committee reviewed that concept and was supportive. However, they suggested that the applicant go out and get HOA feedback prior to the preliminary plan application on having an access point for use of the lake. In addition, Post was supportive of the pedestrian access around the lake being completed, as well as the connections to East Valley Road and Willets Lane Trail. Post was also supportive of having a playground that's proposed in this area behind the affordable housing as an amenity for the project. And staff has included a draft condition that the details on the playground would be provided as part of the preliminary plan application. Other topics included traffic calming that the P&Z discussed. The P&Z and staff felt that there was a need to provide traffic calming on the access road through here. Staff didn't want to be in a position like the town was on East Valley Road, where we had to come back in and retrofit traffic calming at the town's expense. So there's a condition requiring that the applicant come with a plan as part of the preliminary plan application for traffic calming measures. Other items that were included in the P&Z's discussion included green building. There's requirements that the applicant meet the sustainable building regulations for the town of Basalt, as well as to use solar and incorporate solar and meet the wildfire mitigation ordinances. Since the last meeting, staff has provided pictures of the location of the Evans Road connection. Here is Evans Road, here is the stub out that currently exists for the right of way, and so there's photos in your packet as well as we have them here on the screen. The applicants have also provided an alternative site plan that could be considered that includes an overall connection to Willets Lane. So this alternative site plan would have 3 connections out, including the Willits Lane access. Staff would be okay with this alternative site plan as well, with a permanent access onto Willits Lane. The one benefit to not having the permanent access and just having the originally proposed emergency access would be that there would be the potential for less auto pedestrian conflicts on the Willits Lane Trail that runs along Willits Lane that gets considerable pedestrian and bicycle traffic. But staff does feel that more dispersed traffic points into the development is an important aspect to it. So this evening, staff would suggest hearing additional applicant comments and then taking additional public comments as it is a public hearing and providing council discussion on the development and the proposed resolution. So with that said, I'll stop sharing my screen here. And I hope everybody was able to hear me. And so staff would suggest taking comments that the applicant may have. We've got Michael Lipkin and Jody Edwards, as well as Jeff Worslack from Lipkin.
Evening, Michael.
Good evening. Excuse me. I think you guys all pretty well understand the project from what you've seen. Staff and James have done a great job, I think.
That's not how we.
Excuse me. Sorry about that.
Just stare there.
All right.
You're doing
These
what you're.
newfangled technologies.
I told Michael he had to get close to the mic, and he obeyed, so.
And I seldom do that. So, no, I think the staff has done a great job analyzing, as has P&Z, the project. I think you guys understand it, and perhaps it's best for us to just take your questions, and we're ready to do that whenever you're ready.
What's council's pleasure? You want to hear public comment first and then come back with the applicant?
Yeah.
Yes, is that a yes? Okay, so that's what we'll do. You've seen the presentation, and so we will open the floor for public comment at this point. I will remind you that you will have a 3-minute, this is not a casual thing. We have a digital timer up here. You will talk when my hand goes up, that means you've hit your 3 minutes. And if you go 3 minutes, 15 seconds, then a ball comes down. And it's not good if you
We're not
exceed
using the
3
cane
minutes.
today?
What's that?
We're not using the cane today?
Oh, right. Maybe so, I don't know.
But maybe also to add that if you do speak, would just appreciate if you could sign the sign-up sheet that's been around.
Come up there, right?
Yeah, thanks, Jody.
Okay, so the floor is open. If anyone would like to address council, please do so by coming up to the little podium and tell us your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to address the council. So,
Did you want your presentation to show?
Yes.
Okay. Don't start this time yet, just get there.
okay, we won't dock your time for setup.
But somebody else can talk in the meantime.
We normally do, but
Does somebody want to come out and talk in the meantime?
Yeah, while we pull up.
yeah, I think he's gonna be ready to go here pretty soon.
Is that the one?
Yeah, that's a slideshow showing the space that is now between buildings 2 and 3, going into Evans Road. We prepared a petition, and
Please
I'm
tell
gonna
us
read
your
it.
name and address.
My name, Jorge Fuentes.
Okay.
I live at 200 Evans Road. So I'm going to read the petition first. Each of the undersigned, we have 109 signatories. Each of the undersigned are residents of the town of Basalt, and we all have a shared serious interest and a grave concern in the preservation of one of the very last unmolested green spaces in the Willits neighborhood. We have thoroughly reviewed the plan for Parcel 5 and its planned access roads. There are already present 2 existing entry and exit points for Parcel 5 at Willits Lane and at East Valley Road, both sufficiently wide roads to support the additional flow of traffic caused by the proposed large residential development. But quite inexplicably, the developer plans to unnecessarily pave over an existing beautiful unmolested green space and to build a new and completely unnecessary road in order to direct an additional substantial flow of traffic into a very narrow neighborhood street, Evans Road. Evans Road is a narrow roadway that joins Willits Lane and East Valley Road. Consequently, all traffic from Evans Road ends and/or starts at Willits Lane and at East Valley Road. We're extremely concerned that the addition of approximately 155 residential units, multiple vehicles per unit with a total of 355 parking spaces, a large number of daily delivery trucks, utility trucks, service trucks, and many others will severely crowd the already heavily used and very narrow Evans Road, while there is absolutely zero justification for the paving over this existing beautiful green space that has been enjoyed by our community and should be preserved for years to come. We believe that Town Council should instead mandate that Parcel 5 development use the more efficient and planned entrances on East Valley Road and on Willits Lane, and that the beautiful green space be saved and preserved for us, residents of Basalt and Willits, to continue enjoying indefinitely. The plan should be amended to eliminate the Evans Road entrance to Parcel 5 and make the emergency, what they call emergency entrance to Parcel 5 from Willits Lane, already established with curbs, a permanent normal entrance.
Okay, thank you very much. That was excellent, 2 minutes and 40 seconds elapsed time. So next up.
Try to be a minute. Hi, I'm Jill Kostrowski. I'm an owner at Willits Townhomes, and I'm also the treasurer on the board over there. Just wanted to reiterate, we had sent a letter from our board. I think we sent, probably on Monday, we had sent a copy for the previous meeting as well. And we represent 74 owners in Willits Townhomes. Our biggest concern is opening up the Willits Lane entrance and exit. So thank you for considering that. We also believe that Evans Road is very highly trafficked already, and it is very narrow. We see a lot of kids walking to the bus stop on that road every single day, morning and afternoon. And also there's a lot of public parking on Evans Road where people tend to park a little too far from the curb, which then narrows the road even further for the two-way traffic. So our biggest concern is opening up that Willits Lane ingress and egress, so we appreciate your consideration of that. Thank you.
When you say concern, you're in favor of using.
We would love to have that
Okay,
second.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Lots of lots.
thanks.
Thank you.
Next up.
Are we staying, go ahead.
After you, ladies
Because
first,
I was
always.
just gonna say, I'm Kirk Scales.
You have to go up to the mic, sorry.
Where you live?
Well, I'm just here, I'll be real quick. To give
No,
my
it's not how it
time-
works.
No, we need you up
Yeah,
here.
you gotta
We-
come
they
here.
can't-
My time over to Horn.
No, the
No,
time
you
hasn't
can't.
started yet.
What, I'm gonna give my time to him because he has so much more to say.
Okay.
So that's all I wanna say.
Okay, Kurt, thank you.
Now, that's fair, right?
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
well,
No.
Well, if you can do it in Congress, you can do it.
no, he had his say. I mean, I think we heard the whole presentation, so.
What I think too much for this meeting, so that's my problem, I can't get it small enough. Evans Road is so small and so narrow and has enough people walking in the middle that it's totally inappropriate to be open. You get a moving truck or a big truck pulled over to the side, one side has to stop because there's no way for two cars to get around, you can't go both directions. There are no lines. The speed limit's 20 miles an hour. 15. Oh, it's 15? Well, I guess I'll go fast. 15 miles an hour. That's not a major road that can take condominiums on both sides. We have 70, I think, over at Park Modern. On the other side, how many units do you have? 74. 74. And each of those might have two cars? Come on, that is ridiculous. And then you want to add all those cars, 155 more units into that same space. It just does not compute. And the other thing that's off that subject a little bit, you all be careful about giving public access to that lake. I think you're just asking for trouble. It's a great idea, but you look at the trouble they have at Blue Lake. And do you really want kids swimming in there? You gotta put in a lifeguard? Or are the developers gonna put in a lifeguard? I think it's an accident getting ready to happen if you do that. So that's the short of what I have to say.
Thanks, Kirk. Appreciate that. Okay. Next up, hi, Enid.
Hi, I'm Enid Ritchie, and I live at 104 Evans Road, Unit 107. I'm very happy to hear about the access roads to the main arteries, East Valley and also Willets Lane. However, I am concerned about Evans Road, which is probably less than a quarter of a mile long. We have pedestrians, we have people walking dogs, we have children walking up and down that road, and it is very narrow. So I'd like to just emphasize what everybody else has been saying. I don't think Evans Road is a place for access.
Great, thank you, Enid.
Good evening, Jay Israel, 716 Evans Court. The townhome's just across from the parcel we're talking about. My family's either the first or second family to have bought there back in 1998. So I actually dug back and I found one of the original marketing pieces. Not as fancy stuff today, but I mean, literally like a crayon drawing, right? And it actually shows that that is intended always to be a point of egress. So I'm glad that that is now back on the board, because that was my main point of contention, that that had been maybe removed and was going to be used for emergency access only, which then, as everyone else said, would flood Evans Road, which is totally inappropriate. So this will show you 20 plus years ago, they already knew we needed that as well as an entrance for folks to come and go. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Joan Drake, and I live at 101 Willets Way. I think it is totally inappropriate to use that egress in. It is dangerous. We have children all the time walking up and down the road, people walking their dogs, trucks going through there all the time, and as Enid said, it is very narrow, you can't get around, and it's not safe. So I really agree that she should not use that as an egress.
Thank you. Next up. Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
you can, we'll
yeah.
get a mic to you, you don't have to get up at the podium.
If it goes that far, it may not.
I think it will.
We do have the handheld.
Oh, yeah, let's.
He's
I
got
think
it.
it's
No,
close
he's got it.
enough.
He's got it.
You
He's
got
got
it,
Close
they
enough.
got it.
Thank you.
I get it,
Pros.
Susan.
Takes the community. It's awesome.
wanting to really get a
Please
sense.
tell us, the council, your name and address, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Now, see, I'm conscious of the time. My name is Mary Photo. I live at 200 Evans Road.
Okay, thank you.
What I've done to sort of wrap my head around the way you all would think about this, or perhaps think about it, is I've gone and looked at your new strategic, it's hard for me to say certain words, your new strategic plan. Your new strategic plan really hones in on three things that are very important. I'm not going to talk about community because I don't think I have time, but you have concentrated on the built environment and a strategic focus area. You've stated a goal for a well-designed, sustainable community that's uniquely Basalt, and then you've taken action items. One of those action items is that you're going to continue to enhance the town's parks and open spaces, which, you know, they're disappearing almost daily. And the second is to pursue a land use strategy that protects the natural environment, provides generous open space, and directs appropriate density in the urban core. I think you've just looked at some beautiful pictures of the area. You can tell that it's a green space that is very well developed. It's appreciated by everyone who lives there. And without getting into the traffic issues, which someone else might, it's well worth saving. It's hard for me to enunciate how difficult it would be to just look at a cement driveway there. It's beautifully done, and I guess that's perhaps the downfall. But it's beautifully done. It's a gorgeous park-like space, and I personally appreciate it and would very much like to see it stay, not just for myself, but for the whole neighborhood. We've addressed the different people that you see when you walk, and it's an area where right now we gather on the street, so to speak, in front of the boulders that are there and have our often discussions about things. But was that the alarm?
Yeah, that's it. Your time is, is
I'm
up,
sorry.
so.
I am really mindful of that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I want more time. I didn't use my vote.
no. It doesn't work that way, Kirk. So, gentleman in the back, come on up.
My name is Gary Ferguson.
Gary, you have to come up to the podium here.
Thank you, yeah, sorry. Well,
They can't hear you on TV.
Yes, my name is Gary Ferguson. I currently live at 442 Jody Road. And we look directly out on that new, egress into the thing. And, there was some comment about headlights and things like that, but I don't think that's really a great issue. I'm here to express my wife's concerns, Tisa Ferguson. She is mainly concerned about the children and the dog walkers and the bicyclists. And those are all pretty serious, but it looked to me like the egress and access for the affordable units, or the whatever you call them, the 44, would be fairly a straight shot out either way. So, and it seems to me that you've discussed that already, and Mr. Lipkin has very gracefully, agreed that that's not a big deal, that they could open that fire department. I guess it's a fire department access as it's currently proposed. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Judy Nespeka, and I live at 618 Evans Court in the Willits Townhomes. I think safety is everyone's concern in any new development, but when we think about the bicycles, the WeGo, that were just recently installed over the last 2 years, that was a community goal to encourage transportation from here to there. Yeah. The safety of that would definitely be hindered with more cars going through there. The other thing too, if we do open up to Willits Lane, I have a suggestion that the bike trail go up and over the road. Can that sidewalk be elevated so the bicyclists that are riding on that do not get hit by a vehicle? I mean, it's a wild thought, but that's a big concern going up and down that road there, and I ride it all the time. So that's all I wanted to say, just
Thank
to
you for those
think out of
comments.
the box in terms of the safety.
All righty,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Anyone else? Going once. going twice. So at this point, okay, John,
I think you got one more.
evening,
Hi,
John.
I'm John Pease. I live at 638 Evans Court in the Willits Townhomes. I walk along the bike path, the loop from where Willits Townhomes is, and connects to the bike path along Willits Lane, up toward 82, and then around down past the Lateral Park, and then on the road where right by the access egress that we're talking about. Just as a foot walker on a pretty much daily basis, I've noticed an increase in traffic, and I don't see anything but more of that happening with all the pressures, not just from this 155 development, but there's a subdivision going on at the three-way stop coming out of the Willits single-family subdivision across Willits Lane. You've got what's going on at Ace Lane. You got everything going on in the Willits commercial area, and all of that's driving more and more traffic every day. You guys all know that. We all know that. We're experiencing it, and I only see it. Development just means more of it. So I'm here in support of putting in that access point to Willits Lane, which is a two-lane road, two-lane on East Valley, and if there's no stripe down the middle of the road, isn't that a one-lane road? I don't know. But I know it goes both ways, and that's kind of silly, but there's no dividing line. People do whatever they want in there. There's dogs, tons of dogs. I know more dogs than I know people out there. You got bike stations, you got kids, strollers, you got it all. And you got two communities, the townhomes and Park Modern, and you're gonna put this traffic right in between them. I just don't think that's using common sense or being fair to the people that are there. I think we'd be much better served by the other two access points coming off two-lane roads where there's a lot of traffic there already. I know they're doing counts, and we've asked for a speed sign, digital readout right off of Willits Lane, where it's right off the fire lane going into the Willits Townhomes. And I don't know that I think it's had some impact, but hopefully they'll be getting some data off that will help, define this issue a little more clearly. I just don't see anything but more and more and more, and it's a safety thing for all of us. So thank you.
Thanks, JP. Appreciate that.
Say just one thing to Mr. How come you're responsible for most of the
No.
Wait a minute, that's out of order.
Out of order.
Out of order.
Out of order. Out of order.
Where's the gavel?
Out of order. Yeah. Doesn't work that way.
Okay.
You got another comment. Phil, you got a comment.
There we go. Excuse us. Please feel free to tell us your name and address the council.
Certainly. My name is Nikita Dinelli. I'm a resident of Pitkin County. I live on Lone Pine Road, and I help take care of people in this community. And so I would like for the roads to be considered for emergency access, in the sense that not having this be open and available and having all of these people try to leave at once doesn't make sense, because when it's an emergency situation, people tend to think about the places that they've gone before rather than the place that's been shut off to them. So I think if you close this off as emergency access only, you're setting yourself up for the pitfall of people being in a panic, trying to save their lives and the lives of their family members and loved ones, going the wrong way and creating a greater tragedy than needs to be. So that's my piece.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you.
For having me.
Anyone else like to address council on Phase 5? Susan?
Well, two things. One is I think we have a couple people that are attendees that are holding, and we think they're here to speak potentially on this item. And maybe if you also or someone else is listening and you want to speak, the Zoom invitation is the first page on the agenda, and why don't you text 970-379-1514 if you also want to speak. But Pam, how do you want to do the attendees that are in the queue?
So Andrea and Mike, if you are interested in speaking at this item, would you please raise your hand on the screen, please? Thank you. So they may be here for other items. They're
Okay.
not raising their
Okay.
hands.
Okay, so apparently they haven't raised their hand to speak.
Okay.
So I think we are okay.
Might want to fix that.
All right, I will, before I close the public hearing, ask one more time, is there anyone in the audience that wants to address council on Phase 5, Silver Meadows PUD? All right, hearing none, then we will turn to questions of council for the applicant. I feel it kind of critical to make a comment here. This is sketch plan. We're going to see this again. So a lot of what you're hearing here, these applicants are going to hear the sense of the council, and we're going to be giving strong encouragement for making modifications to the plan that hopefully we'll see before it comes back at final. So this is not the end of the road here. We're at the very beginning of the road. Road, maybe perhaps a bad analogy here for tonight, but possibly. So with that, questions from council of the applicant. I can't help but resist one. So the overarching question will be, and there's no requirement for you to respond to this tonight, but the current arrangement is to have the full circulation lane from Evans Road to the project with limited gated access off of Willets Lane. Would you consider maybe flipping the diagram and making the Evans connection an emergency gated access, perhaps even paved with grass pavers, and then use the Willets Lane access as a full movement roadway? And it's not a condition or anything else. I'm just asking the question. If, is there any traction possibly for that idea? Also, traction being a bad idea analogy. Pardon?
No.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
But I'm certainly glad to respond to what we've been hearing and some
Okay.
thoughts about the importance of that connection.
All right. That's my question. Other questions?
Did you want to respond?
Let's hear.
I'm happy to respond, sure.
Yeah, go for it.
This is a road that was platted 20-plus years ago, and we have planned around this road. And the connectivity of Willets, we have put in sidewalks, which are on Evans Road. We have put in trails as well as sidewalks. There are 46 acres of open space. And coincidentally, if you add the 74 Willets townhouses and the 65 Park Modern units that are both accessed from Evans Road, that's about 140 units. So we're talking about building a total of the same number of units that already use Evans Road, but we're talking about either one or two other access points, both of which might be more favorable for a lot of the traffic. But I want to say a few things. I simply don't buy the description of that being a highly trafficked or dangerous road, or that children can't be on sidewalks. I mean, that's the way the world kind of works. The connectivity of Willets is one of the beautiful things about it. The walkability and the dog friendliness of it is what I'm perhaps most proud of, so I share their enthusiasm. But their fears I don't share. I want to point out that the movie we saw, and there were a lot of discussion about a lot of traffic and parking issues, there wasn't a single car shown on Evans Road in all of that video that we were shown, or a single car parked on Evans Road. Now, since the last council meeting, when the traffic on Evans Road was referred to by these people, I've since driven on Evans Road 12 times. At 15 miles an hour, only once did I incur a single car. So a traffic study is in the works, but I think it will substantiate the viability and the serviceability of what we have proposed, and I will stick to the elegance of our plan, which was built around creating connectivity. We put in a linear park all through the length of Willets so people could get from where they live and be within a block and a half of that linear park that everybody shares, a community park. Not only is there a sidewalk along it, there is also a trail through it, as well as a road that when there was a concern raised about speeding, we slowed things down. We've been asked to create some traffic calming on the lane that will go through the middle that connects at Evans Road. We're happy to do that, but I want to go back to the movie again. Most of the images you were shown were not of the roadbed we're talking about. They were all over Willets Lane. A few of the people that are concerned live along this connector, but it's 50 feet between this woman's house, her Park Modern unit, and this road, and plenty of room to landscape that. To call a road that's been platted for 20 years a pocket park or a public park, and if we're talking about walkability and dogs, completing the trail system around the lake and finishing something that's long been anticipated is what we should all be excited about. Not some idea that we have a 1 block long street where we can't possibly manage to separate pedestrians and cars and danger with a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. And if these people would, be good if they obeyed the speed limit. But I'm just having a lot of trouble understanding the science, engineering behind their concern. I realize they've all believed this, but I'm not sure it's rationally supportable. And what I do appreciate is a lot of them mention how much they care about Willets. And I want to remind them that piece of property where they live was dead flat with nothing on it when we started, and there were always objections. And, nobody's really willing to look at the rights of the future residents. We're proposing something that's exactly like where all of these people live, with the same attention to details, setbacks from roads, landscaping, park, trails. I'm not sure there's any we're trying to make it as good a project as we know how to be, but we certainly believe the right to drive in there directly and drive the shortest distance to Whole Foods rather than out and around and having a lot more traffic impact and shifting it from one group of people to another simply seems like, these people are not excited about granting the next group the same enjoyments they are having.
Well, that's a complete answer, I would say. So, any questions from council? Bill and for David and then Bill.
Yes, I got a quick one. We brought it up last time, the updated traffic counts. I know for September, there'll be a forthcoming report. When will that report be available?
We think in the next month.
Next month,
They're
okay.
compiling the data now.
Okay.
Certainly for preliminary plan.
I just had
Go ahead, Bill.
clarification, and then I do want to follow up with a question too. Because, Michael, I thought that I would swear that I heard you say last meeting that the reason for the Evans Road Connect was not necessarily your choice of the developer's perspective on this, but rather that it was somewhat motivated by staff. But then I also wanted to make sure that I heard James clearly, that the current plan is for 3 points of connection, one to Evans, one to Willets, and one to East Valley. Did I hear that correctly?
That's right. Yeah.
Which is modified from the last meeting.
Okay.
There was only a temporary or an emergency access to Willets, and
Right.
So that's...
So now that's going to be fully open?
Yes, that's the idea.
Okay.
Is that your understanding, Michael?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if I think what I was saying, yeah, I think we're on the same page.
Because my observation, though, frankly, after having been on this council with a couple of the other folks, we deliberated on this preservation of a quarter of an acre back here for an awfully long time. So it seems that we're very cavalierly moving forward to pave over what is a green space between two properties that connects the lake. And with 3 points of connection, frankly, it strikes me as an asphalt maximization plan rather than a plan that is necessarily going to serve the interest of the community, particularly those who have voiced consistent concern about the Evans Road access, regardless of how we want to dice whose bike, whose dog, or whose pedestrian experience may be encumbered. If that's the only thing standing between you and, you know, unanimous support, and you already have 2 other points of access, why, where is the debate?
Well, I think that the facts and a traffic study and traffic engineering and the design of a community, listen, I'm a student of new urbanism. That is about, new urbanism was a reaction to suburbia and going back to the traditional town layouts where streets are the thing that brings people together with multiple points of, you know, what do we call it, flexible ways to move through it. I think we've done a really good job with that, and I am not prepared to abandon that plan on a platted road that has been in existence. And I think I'd like you to come out, Bill, and I'd love to show you what we're looking at there, because what they are describing, and as a park, when there are another 46 acres of park and an awful lot of planning for every piece of land out there and landscaping, I think I'm just gonna stick to our plan. I think it's right. I've got, you know, been studying architecture in towns for over 50 years, and I think I understand and believe, and it's my responsibility to Willits, which is my child, to make sure it's as smart as it is the day I walk out of this room with or without an approval. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. We've thought too hard about this to simply have what I consider not fact-based criticism. I'm looking to the traffic study and traffic engineers to tell us whether this works.
Yeah.
Questions from council, anyone else questions from council for the applicant?
Go for it, Gary.
Glenn? No, I think it was Ryan, but Glenn, go ahead.
There's Ryan at it.
Who wants it? So I guess I'll probably be the minority on this one, but I live in this area. I know the road that he's talking about, the green space they're talking about. There's technically a no trespassing sign right in the middle of that. I don't think that it's fair to push all that traffic in front of Lakeside Townhomes, which is what you would do, or in front of the affordable housing units. I mean, with the amount of traffic that's there, you're gonna need 3 access points. I didn't ever agree with it being gated off. I'm gonna leave that at that. As far as the affordable housing goes, that's where I was gonna go. Why does it have to be, like, it doesn't look anything like the development?
You know, I'm sorry, but let me just say it like this. If you look at the other blocks, they are all boxes. It doesn't look like Park Modern because we haven't designed the buildings.
I'm talking more, they're straight in a line, not angled. Like, it doesn't seem like it's really part of the community. All their parking's lined up on the street. Granted, I know you're not gonna put underground parking in there, but could you angle them? Could you make the parking a little more off the street?
You have to get closer to the mic, Glenn. It's
Oh,
just
sorry.
hearing you.
So, you're talking about just angling the buildings?
Yeah, angle the
You know-
buildings, maybe make parking loops in there or something, so that it just kinda looks like you know what it is.
You know,
And then what kind of rates?
I'm sorry, what kind of rates?
Rates. Yeah,
You're talking about rental rates?
yeah,
Yeah, well, they're the ones mandated by the code.
okay.
And let me just say, beyond that, with respect to the affordable housing, the minimum requirement in the code is 750 square feet for a 2-bedroom. We're planning on being in the neighborhood of 900 feet with that, but that does not allow us to charge more rent. We're putting in a community space in there, we're putting in a playground. We'd like to work with staff to be able to figure out how to do three-bedroom units oriented towards families, which right now the code doesn't support. Half the units are on the ground floor, and we can have a 20-foot green space garden in front of those things, which I think can be quite nice for them. You know, a lot of Willits is laid out on a grid system, and, you know, we're moving into a corner where there, you know, I would say it's land use maximization, but I think what I'd like to do is come back and show you the design buildings, because we intend to make them look like they are part of Park Modern. And I think when you see them in the landscape and designed, I think they're gonna, I know why you're making the comment. I think we can alleviate your concerns. But if we can't, it will be our job to do that. So you know, one of our jobs as architects is often, when people ask for something, to not do exactly what they ask for, but to understand what the question is and what we can learn from the question, and we will certainly learn from that question.
Gary, were you up?
Sure. So for me, you know, I did have a question. My question was in a similar lane as where Glenn was, is really to understand how the affordable housing is going to fit into this, because, you know, the way it's depicted now, it is different. It's near the industrial center. It's away from where the Park Modern units are. So for me, I really would want to see, you know, how those things line up. I do like the 3-bedroom units. I think we're missing ladders in this, you know, in our affordable housing overall. I had a question why you chose rental over for sale. I don't know, I didn't see that answer in any of the memos, but that was, so I'll stick to the affordable housing piece. So you answered Glenn's piece, and I would love to see when it comes back that it really does fit with Park Modern. I want to see how that, you know, playground, or, you know, more of an open space, like, so people can use that park, not just put a playground in, but, you know, 1,000 square feet sounds pretty small, but maybe how you're determining how you develop that area behind there. But why did you choose rental over affordable, over for sale?
I think there are a lot of answers. And I'll start with, I guess, that, well, certainly during the recession we had in '08, the people that suffered most in our affordable housing were the people that owned something and didn't have the flexibility to move out of the area. They couldn't move in with their parents. The other thing is, with the 3% appreciation cap, what's happened is it hasn't been a good investment for anybody. When you live there for 10 years and everything else in the state is appreciating at a higher rate, it becomes very hard to move out of affordable housing and find something else to buy. And that's a problem Aspen has with a tremendous number of its long-term residents. They don't have a way out of that affordable housing because they haven't participated in the economy. We also know that in some of the ownership affordable housing projects, there's been a problem with maintenance and abilities of people to afford maintenance and replace roofs and deal with mold issues in their buildings. They just aren't able to take on that responsibility, so it ultimately comes back to the city to do that. I think it's a much kinder and better solution for people to be able to rent, not tie up their capital and their buying power, and hopefully maybe have some money to do something else with that. But it certainly isn't a good investment we're encouraging people to make. The other thing is, banks have trouble financing these projects for all of the reasons I just articulated. They've been problematic investments, largely because of the lack of maintenance that gets done, and the issues people have to make their HOA dues when they lose their jobs. And we have seen that cyclical thing in this economy. And I know a lot of people, ownership up in Aspen was devastating for, and also living in buildings where other people weren't able to make their payments. So it's a financial responsibility that everybody can't necessarily assume. So that's my belief, as well as the pragmatics of why that's a difficult sell.
Okay, Ryan, did you have a question?
Just one or two questions. Did you ever think of coming off the Park Modern entrance instead of the road cut you already have there?
Well, yeah, we had conversation with staff early on to take traffic off Willets Lane and focus more. And we have a lot of conversations, and that maybe wasn't an ultimatum from staff, but it was certainly what I took to be a recommendation, that the desire of council, and this is some years back, was to not put more traffic on Willets Lane, but get it off Willets Lane and move it towards the highway. So that was that direction that got us to change the way the plan works. But now I think this plan works pretty well, because our biggest commitment is to create as much open space and separation between buildings as we can figure out how to do that. And so that's why we abandoned that approach. It was staff recommendation, but I think it was a very good one, and I feel good about where we are.
And so are you against 3 access points?
No, if that's what you believe is right, but it's also, instead of being a fairly major, yeah, I think 3 access points is fine. If that's what staff and council would like to see, we're happy. I think there's another possibility, and that is, because I believe the traffic problem is being significantly overestimated, and I think we're going to find that's supported by the traffic study, that we don't have to open, I'm sorry. I apologize. I think the traffic study will support that, and I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You were going to say that we wouldn't have to open, I'm guessing.
I'm sorry. That could be left as an option at council's discretion to open or close in the future. We could start one way, we could start either way, but it doesn't have to be a permanent solution. And I don't think you're going to find a traffic situation that is going to mandate that. But that's up to you. I mean, I realize you have a public, and there are other opinions than ours right here. So I think flexibility and adaptability is always a great thing to have in any kind of plan, and we have that here. So you guys can tell us whether you want it open now or open it up when the time comes when it seems to be appropriate.
I guess I had a question of, I'm sorry, did you finish?
I have a question, a comment too.
I just had a quick, is this going to be a 3-step or a 2-step?
It's a 3-step.
Okay.
3-step.
So we're going to see this at preliminary. Okay, fine, sorry.
Just, Michael, what you just said is exactly what I thought I heard last week, was that you were discouraged from another point on Willets.
Yes.
And so, I will defer to the interests and concerns of our fire, police, and EMT folks. If they say 3 staff is what we need to protect human health, I will frankly stand down. But otherwise, again, no one's ever going to debate you as the expert on new urbanism, and the notion of promoting connectivity, I have actively supported at Willets Bend, which is not terribly far from this project. But connectivity, just because the road is platted, doesn't obligate us to build a road, does it? I mean, what I have argued for at Willets Bend is a simple foot trail that will permit for the future development to access BRT, transit, and the entire Willets complex that is so great. So if we're trying to promote connectivity, do we have to define a road as however wide an asphalted road is, or could we promote connectivity and all of that spirit of new urbanism?
No, here's what you're doing, is you're asking a group of people to probably drive twice as far to go to Whole Foods. And, I think that's kind of unfortunate. And
Michael, if you're going to debate the traffic statistics, is it really twice as far? And if we're talking about a quarter mile versus 3/8 of a mile, for goodness sakes, I mean, that's pedantic.
If we're all talking about cutting down traffic, all you're doing is asking for us to shift an impact from this group of people that are in the room and I question the impact to another group of people and have cars drive a different way, I think it's my responsibility to stand up for a plan that I understand and believe in.
Yeah, because I've pushed very hard for bike access and pedestrian access.
We have that.
Right now, from Willits Bend, you know the project very well,
Sure.
I know. You have to take a bike out onto main roads. It would be so much safer if we had a corridor that ran up from the Willits property through the backside of your property and then accessed the Willits commercial complex. So again, it's more in the spirit of promoting connectivity and mobility through non-automotive means, through non-vehicular means. You know, and if we can contemplate that, that would perhaps go some distance to, you know, addressing the concerns that virtually every citizen from that complex has brought up. So,
Okay, Elise, or
David's
David?
first, then me.
David,
So
then
are we
Elise.
in, are we in the comments then? It says like we're in the comments. I have a comment.
I have
Either one.
comments too, so.
The floor's open.
Okay,
for-
so we've been talking a lot about a lot of different permutations, a lot of different ways that connectivity can be achieved. I think we need the traffic study. I want to wait and get that traffic study with the September numbers before we go any further. Is all this that we're talking about, we don't have that layer of current data to weigh that against. So I think it would be beneficial to wait till we get that study before we kind of move forward. I mean, the findings could impact the site plans, it could impact, you know, the ingress, egress, it can impact a lot of how we do affordable housing, the density, right? So I think we should wait for that. And that's my comment as far as that goes. If it's gonna be a month, that's not that long. And there's plenty of other topics on the list to talk about that we haven't even really gotten to yet. So, also the 3-bedroom part, I wanna weigh in on that as well. I think it's important to have discussions about that. And maybe there'll be policy changes. That's kind of outside this, but I think that's something that we should definitely talk about because it's a missing rung in the ladder for sure. So,
Elise?
Thank you. So, I am explicitly in favor of opening up the Willits ingress, egress. However, I have a different reason for being in support of that, and that is that I will share that I live in the Roaring Fork Apartments, and I have to go around through the gas station and the subway and all of that in order to get back there. And I think that it is slightly biased, inequitable, that the affordable housing folks are the ones that are going to be farthest from any of those entrances and exits. So I would like to argue for that from that perspective. I will reserve comment on the Evans Road ingress egress until the traffic study. And then the last thing I was going to say is I am also in support of looking at the possibility of doing the 3 bedrooms in the affordable housing section. And I wonder if there's some way that we could maybe redistribute the 0.75 Rita or whatever it was, somehow put that towards these sort of 3 bedroom units and reconfiguration of that rather than the Rita, because honestly, you know, we are much more in need of affordable housing than money. And we're not in a position as a developer to do anything with it right now, but put it in the bank and add it to some more money. So I would love to hear some ideas around that.
I just have one more question on that, Rita. I believe in your presentation you were saying there's the Park Meadows has a 1%, but this one's a 0.75%. Is there a reason we're taking off a quarter point?
Plus.
Oh, so it would be 1.75.
And then, and keep in mind, Park Modern, okay, had an original 1% that gets split into Taka and the town. And then we did an additional Arts Rita on top of that, that anything that sold over $600,000 we used for art in and around town. So the folks here, most of them probably paid the 2%. And this one will be 1.75.
And what are the uses of this, Rita?
This Rita, the 0.75 go to affordable housing, and then the 1% is in the annexation agreement back in the mid-90s
half of it goes to TACA for capital, and half of it goes
So
to
it
the
would still-
town.
But just as a point of clarification on the Rita, I mean, it has become the flavor of the developer's day to offer these Ritas, and it is frankly no skin off the developer's nose, although I understand it has become very popular. What it is a tax on transactions, which, you know, thank you very much, and I applaud the uses of the Rita, particularly for TACA and the arts and things such as that. But it is a tax. We call it an assessment so that we can circumvent Tabor, and plain and simple, you're putting the burden on future buyers. And I'm not sure why this is a great thing from the town's perspective. You know, it is going to impede transactions associated with the owner-occupied units in your future development, as it does in Park Modern.
I don't think it impedes
Yeah,
the transactions in Park Modern. I feel
It's-
pretty
it's-
comfortable.
It's a 1% tax, and
Well-
any tax is going to slow the velocity of economic transactions. That's a pretty iron-bound economic rule.
Just
So
to,
we're-
You're
we're
gonna
not-
give your attorney a heart attack.
Yeah.
What's that?
You're gonna give your attorney a heart attack if you keep saying that.
just for the record, it's not a tax, it's an assessment, it's a developer agreed upon obligation. It's money that comes from it, touches and concerns and benefits the property that's being developed, and it's used to offset some of the impacts from that
Yeah,
development. Just
I've heard that before, Jeff.
But I still
and
maintain that we could use the affordable housing more than we could use the money.
But we could use
Yeah.
the money and the affordable
Or we can use
housing.
the money for affordable housing.
Yeah.
Well,
Both
but
are
I'm
good.
saying, like, why take it and then give it back?
But again, the debate is more what we as council want to do with the Rita, and the fact that the developer has offered 1 3/4, we could offer 2. We could request 2 1/4 or something more.
Bring that
I
to
mean,
the table then. Offer
There's
it.
nothing sacred about, you know, a 1 3/4. You know, and there's nothing sacred about how it gets used. It could all go to affordable housing. It could all go to arts. It could all do something else. Jody's shaking her head no.
Not really.
I think we're getting outside the base paths here
Yeah,
of our
but
land use review
the
here,
answer is
so I'd
no,
like
you
to
can't.
call us back to
Okay.
to the land use application. And, you know, I would like to, unless, are there more questions of the applicant tonight? Because here's what I'm going to serve up here, is the idea that this is sketch, and the function of the sketch plan application, as I read it in our code, is this is the very initial sort of impressionistic look at the property. We highlight issues and we serve those back to the developer, and then they work on the application and bring it back, and we see it in more detail at preliminary. So my view would be that I think the traffic study is critically important, but I think it's critically important for P&Z to see it as well. So my view would be that I would be partial to taking action one way or the other on the sketch plan application, and then indicating that we want a thorough traffic study completed before we see it back at preliminary. And then we're gonna see it again at final. So I don't think it's critical that we table this and hold it in abeyance for more information at sketch. That's a personal view, but that's kind of where I'm at with it.
If anybody doesn't have any comments, I'll make the motion.
And
I have
Mr.
one-
Mayor, just briefly, there is a condition of approval about the traffic study, that it needs to be submitted prior to preliminary plan.
Okay.
And if there was council's desire to say that as part of the sketch plan approval for preliminary plan, that the applicant present, you know, options for access, including, as they have agreed to now, that the access on Willets Lane not just be an emergency access, but be a full access
Yeah.
point.
Gary
One
Tenenbaum.
my last thing is, you know, I kind of agreed with David on the traffic study. My whole take on this is, I'm worried about this application being too dense. And, you know, the density is just too much because it's at the top of medium density residential. And so, you know, I'm just concerned that the traffic and everything else, that we're just at that point where maybe this is just too dense and it should have been closer to the midpoint of medium density residential. But, you know, I'm willing to wait for that traffic study and really discuss that at that time. And so, because to me, I look at this, it's just if we're gonna open up to Willits, I ride that trail a lot. And now we're gonna have another access point on that trail. And there's gonna be a lot of people using that too. And so, you know, every time you have a driveway crossing of a trail, it's a major, major issue of a major trail. And that's a major connection. We just talked about e-bike connections and all that stuff. So, you know, I do have my concern about the density because it's just driving this traffic issue. So anyway, this is just my comment, not a question. And so it's really the fact that yes, in medium density, you can ask for 11.99 units per acre, and that's what they're doing. And so it's within the master plan. But I have an issue with the density overall because it's just gonna be, you know, I just feel that, you know, between all the people driving in and out, I love the affordable housing, but all the people driving in and out, it was just gonna be a lot of cars, a lot of crossings of people in Lakeside, people in Willits, and people on Willits Lane, so. But I'm willing to wait for the traffic study. I've done this before where you approve it on sketch, and it does die in a preliminary because you get more information and you don't like it. Developers taking a risk, because if we approve it on sketch, they have to produce so much more for us. But, so I think they've heard our concerns.
All right, Mr. Lipkin, do you have a rejoinder or?
The density is slightly less than the adjacent Park Modern per acre of units and per acre of square footage. So, and I'd really encourage all of you to spend a little time down there and think about density and think about traffic and just, you know, I think that's the best way to do it because I observe it every day. My office observes it every day. We've watched it grow. You know, I sat around and talked to my team that's been doing this since the beginning, and we think traffic is not a significant issue at all. So we're in a really different place.
All right, we're going to have time to debate that after we see hard numbers. So,
Mayor, I move that Town Council approve Resolution Number 40, Series of 2021.
is there a second? Second. I'll second it. So, okay, you want this to be a voice vote?
Can be.
It's up to you. It can be roll call vote, Pam, if you'd like to call it that way. Yeah.
What?
But I thought Gary just pointed out that there is peril in approving this at sketch because it could condemn them to doing a whole lot more work. Did I misunderstand what you said, Gary?
No, he's
If
just.
they're willing to do it, it's their risk, it's not ours.
Okay.
Right, it's their risk, not ours. I mean,
Okay.
the thing is, what I was trying to say was, you know, I have concerns, you know, obviously I want to see the affordable housing and all this stuff before I would approve any of this stuff. And so, you know, I might approve it on sketch, but they are taking that risk to move it on to the next step.
Got it.
So it's not our risk,
Oh, okay.
it's their risk,
I think in order for us to get more information, this is the next step.
Okay.
if we want to. I mean,
Yeah,
that,
if we
it's
I
up to
thought you were
everybody.
suggesting a continuance. Sorry, misunderstood.
Well, originally I was gonna go along with the continuance, but the reality is I'm not gonna get answers on what the affordable housing is gonna look like. I'm not gonna get all the answers on, you know, a further down
Mhm.
thing based on the sketch plan. I'll get it in preliminary.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Pam, would you call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you. Gary Tenenbaum.
Yes.
Thank you. David Knight.
No.
Thank you. Bill Infante.
I'm going to say no as well.
Thank you. Elise Hoddle.
Yes.
Thank you. Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you. And Bill Kane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
So you got some risks to, to work on. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight, and we'll see you again at the preliminary review, or we'll get to do this again.
Now we have time to kill.
We could maybe.
Can I make a comment, since we have some time anyway?
Sure.
Here.
So,
About this?
well, kind of relatedly, but Gary, I think to your point that,
Hold on.
You can't.
no,
Okay.
Oh,
no, I was gonna talk about, I think that the elephant in the room is
Please,
that we
if you're
need
going to talk, please go out in the hallway.
from Rio Grande, like the Hookspur Trail, into Willits. It's not.
If you're going to talk, please go in the hallway. We
it's
have to
not
continue
forcing
with our
people
meeting.
onto Willits Lane.
I love it.
Wouldn't that be great? Because that's the way I come. If I come down, if I ride my bike down from Basalt, then I go Rio Grande, and then I have to cut over to Willits Lane. Like, I would love if there was another, like, trail way to get into Willits. So I think that's something that we need to consider.
Well, the problem is we've looked at it, there's no private landowner. We have to create something on Willits Lane on the bridge. Basically, the bridge is the biggest piece of the puzzle there. 'Cause
Oh.
the private land goes all the way through. There's no way to get a bridge across to get another way through from the Rio. So it's in our Parks, Open Space and Trails Master Plan.
Yeah.
Is to have a bridge from the BLM piece way down Hooks into Crown Mountain Park. But
And then you'd have to come back
you'd
up.
have to come back.
Yeah.
But that's the only place that you could potentially do it if you can get connection to the BLM piece, which we've been working on with no success. There's one parcel in the middle of that. But I
Gotcha.
agree with you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's the perfect picture.
That's a no trespassing zone right there.
You do a certain number of units, and then.
The other thing you gotta realize
and
is
then,
this
like-
is a fucking HOA. This is
Oh.
common space.
And I got the petition,
Right there.
Jeff, how should I enter that into the record when you ask?
What is the?
This is the petition that was part of the last application.
Doesn't matter anyway, it's just to me, it's,
Well, it was submitted to
it was a
staff,
connection
we'll
all the
just
way
make it part of
through
the
on both
record. I
sides.
just
I'm not
hand it to
against
Pam and
that.
it'll be included as part of the record.
Are we going to run afoul of notice because of the time on the agenda, or can we get started?
We can get started. Those are just estimates for
Are
council.
we late?
No,
We're
we're early.
We're 15 minutes early. I got the gavel, man.
Barely used
He's
it.
looking forward to a glass of wine.
Get in trouble if the applicant isn't there and you start taking.
I know you want one, but you don't have
If the applicant wasn't there and we just decided on it without him, that would be better.
I want my own gavel.
Oh, I thought you wanted your own nameplate.
Oh,
Third
Not
one's a
yet.
charm.
hello, my name is.
Okay, everybody ready to go for our next item? So,
Mayor, I'll be recusing myself from this
Oh, that's
item
right, Louise.
and for the rest of the evening. So good night, everyone.
Oh, don't tell my wife.
we'll be calling Stubbies to make sure you're not there. Okay, well, next order of business is item 6E. This is a continued public hearing, resolution number 38, series of 2021, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving the CSC sketch plan application to construct a grocery store and 70 residential apartment units on lots A and E of the Basalt Center subdivision with associated improvements, Basalt, Colorado. So again, this is James' item.
Yep.
Is
Yeah,
James
this
gonna
is
join
James
us?
Onum, and just to kind of note before you guys read the suggested action is that there was a typo on the date that we're continuing this to, and we're continuing it to October 12th, 2021 instead of 2024. So James, do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, thank you. This is a continued public hearing on the BCC application to construct a grocery store market of about 9,000 square feet and up to 70 apartment units on the upper floors of the BCC property. As was presented at the prior two meetings, the property subject to the application is the BCC property that includes the vacant space that housed Clark's Market, as well as Habitat Restore, and also the spaces that currently contain BLT, Jimbo's Liquor, and Decorative Materials. This is the vicinity map that shows the property. We're all familiar with it. At the last meeting, the council heard a presentation of the discussion items, took public comments, and provided council discussion. In terms of the council comments, the amount of affordable housing and the scale of massing seem to be the most significant comments on the project. Since that meeting, the applicants have provided a letter indicating that they thought that they could up the affordable housing to meet the 25% mitigation requirement in the town code, and then to remove the 4th floor, but maintain close to the same amount of apartment units that they had in the original application. So this evening, staff suggests hearing some more details from the applicants on what they believe they can adjust on the project per that email that's in your packet. And then staff would suggest taking public comments, and the applicants really would like to get council feedback on whether the adjustments that they're suggesting are going in the right direction before they draw up the adjustments that they're talking about. So once again, staff would suggest hearing more detail from the applicants, and then taking public comment and getting feedback from council on the adjustments. So with that said, we do have Tim and Andrew there this evening to discuss the adjustments they think they could make.
You've got
Good
the
evening,
floor.
council.
Evening, Tim and Andrew.
It was a pleasure to come in a little early.
Yeah.
Usually works the other way. I think I'll be play-by-play, and Andrew will be more color commentator here. We'll, in lieu of James kind of abbreviating that discussion, I'll make sure that we've hit on the points that apply to, thank you, the memo that was issued last Friday to staff and the council for consideration of what we're going through tonight. I think as we see it, the process is working. That's really the bottom line here. As I expect it always does, really, when we get into public entitlements, we have to trust that the meetings, the research, the inspired ideas, the presentation, the thought that everybody puts into this, the time and energy, results in something that benefits the project's goals, even if it may be changing them. But it comes out with what the community and you as representatives of the community see as the way to go to support the plan. We hope to get your feedback tonight on these items. The high level item here is we heard loud and clear that in the context of view plane, see the ridge line, the density, the way in which it may or may not be compliant with master plan, even though I think it was, but it was more just questioning the master plan. Gary, you brought that up. The majority of you all and the majority of the community members were voicing loud and clear to Andrew and I that we needed to pull down the building, regardless of it being in compliance with this community serving commercial zone, CSC zone district, set that aside and move in the direction of bringing it down a floor. Fortunately, the building area is large enough we were able to figure some of that out. We have a very talented design team that felt that as a challenge, quite frankly. And they have gotten us comfortable that that is a doable massing plan change, a height change that we can make work. Part of the tool belt, or the tools that they pulled out of their tool belt, would have been to reconfigure the building and to downsize the units, reconfigure the units so that we can get an adequate number for the project's viability financially. And also we're able to see a slight reduction in parking spaces. as a result of the reduction of units. Our target right now is 66 units, may be able to get to 67. That's where we are. As it relates to affordable housing, that was the other strong theme that was consistently coming out. Again, CSC allowed the 15% of units and square footage plus a 1.5% RETA to be an option on the development side, or 25%. What we are proposing in this go-round, hopefully you're satisfied with 25% unit count and square footage. And to remain with the RETA. Yeah, to keep the RETA right where it is. There were some comments about that in the earlier application. We caught those. We see that that's a benefit that's out there, and the manner in which we present the affordable housing units will be a blend of category units. And for that, we'd like to work with staff on that in terms of further clarifying how that would go. It's in the memos, category 1 and category 3, kind of the layers of what was there already, and the additional now 7 units, which is the additional 10%, would be in the category 3 realm. And again, leave the 1.5% RETA. It'll be good for town to have that. As it relates to the sales taxes that are created under the new retailers that are there in place, and to split the incremental new sales tax monies that will be available to the town, we pulled that off the application. So those are the biggies. I think I lead with those in their level of importance as well. We have left in place the opportunity to work with town staff on any public financing that would relate to the public infrastructure work that's happening in the parking lot, the utilities extension. There's an awful lot going on over there, kind of past deficiencies and historic problems that will have to be addressed with whoever's there first with a new building. There's public right-of-way, public property that'll be enhanced. That's part of the design and the site plan already. We'd like the town to participate in that. We'll work with staff on those things. We leave in place the emphasis on long-term leasing. 60% of the grand total of the residential units over there would carry no less than a 6-month lease. Obviously, no short-term rentals whatsoever per town code, and certainly where we are in terms of our heads too. And then 60% of the grand total of the units would be rented to people who claim that is their primary residence. So we really see this as workforce housing. This is housing for the community members that need to find, and as you guys have heard from us already, we see evidence of that already with the projects that we've done in the Willits area. So we'd like to know that we're on the right track, get a confirmation from y'all, or some tone that it's worthwhile pursuing the next step, continuing forward. You'll see that...
To be fair, I've had a number of people tell me, stop working on this deal right now. Just stop. And I said, nope, this is the way it goes.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
That's good. And as we kind of reroute ourselves in this direction, we hope you appreciate that there's, again, a talented team to put this together, a sensitivity to the community, that this is a community-minded and community-driven project. It's a good one. I mean, we know good projects. This is a good one. And we've just got to get ourselves there in terms of how to make it work. It's part of a big balancing act. In the next several weeks, we'll be confirming this direction on our own side to make sure that it all works. But we're pretty confident that this is where we can hang our hat and be on this path. So, unless you have any more.
No, I think we brought our application in that was compliant with the code, and heard loud and clear what the people speaking didn't feel was appropriate, and thought we heard what you all didn't feel was appropriate, and tried to respond. So that's where we are. And would just love to get any criticisms, or if what your concerns are now. We've got a great design team. They're local. we have friends that live here that are telling us that's exactly what our people that work in our businesses need for housing. So we'd love to know if we're on the right track, and we'll get our team back to work. So.
Thank you. Pleasure of the council. Would you like to hear from the public first, or you want to? Yes, is that? Okay, so this is a public hearing. We're going to continue taking public comment, and then we're going to come back and have council address the applicant. But I would just like to note that, you know, at least on a personal front, I really appreciate the amendments. I commend you for listening to a lot that we heard from the public. I think going from 4 stories to 3 stories is a very big deal. I think that really will soften the impact of this building in the community. So, and the larger commitment to affordable housing, the unit sizes, I think all drive this further in the direction of being, you know, legitimate task force housing for the town. So that is all appreciated. So with that, I will open that the hearing for public comment. If you would like to address council, come on up to the podium and give us your name and address, and I'm going to ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. It's right up here. It's a small podium.
Oh, sorry. We have a broken mic today, so.
My name is David Hodgkin. I'm a Basalt resident. I'm very familiar with this project because about 4 years ago, and by the way, I'm an apartment owner, co-own a couple thousand apartments.
Wow.
And so I'm pretty familiar with this type of project. I love the town of Basalt. About 4 years ago, I met with Frank Taverner, and he presented this project to me, and I said I would not do this project because of its size. I thought it would ruin Midtown Basalt. For one, you just talked about a project earlier that was offering 28% affordable housing, and I believe that their project is 11%. Isn't that correct? You're offering
25.
25, okay.
11
I thought there was
units
just
plus
11 units.
6.
I think 11 units out of 70 units is
17 units nowadays.
17 units, okay. And so I just think the scale of the project's too much. I know Tim was greatly involved in Willits and in Whole Foods, which took the market out of downtown Basalt. I've read that he's an expert in markets. Originally, they were promising a market, which I think the community wants here. But now, the latest I've read, it seems to be, it's not really going to be a market. It's going to be a open square for people to bring their goods, rather than a market established. At least that's what I read in the newspaper. So I think that the community needs a market. I think it ought to be imposed on them that before they have a permit, that they ought to have a true market in hand to be able to service the community here. I think the project is too large, even at 3-story. Midtown Basalt, I mean, we're a historic western town. Certainly there are other projects outside over here on Tuvers Road that are taller, but everything in Midtown is 2 stories. And I think there's a parking issue, like it or not. If you walked over there right now, there'd be about 15 spots available total, and that's at night. And whether it's right or not, we have a parking problem here in Midtown Basalt, and it's huge. And it's just going to be further created by this development. So, you know, I think that they're good developers. I think it's be a great project for Willits, but I don't think it belongs in downtown Basalt. And I have not seen the revised rendering of what the project looks like. All I saw was a footprint. The original design looked like nothing that should belong in downtown Basalt. It looked like it should be in Willits. And I think that if anything is developed there, it needs to have a Western motif to go with the rest of everything else that's located here in Midtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else interested, would like to address council on the revised proposal? Yes, ma'am, come on up.
I'm Stephanie Scavullo. I live at 215 East Homestead Drive in Basalt. And I appreciate you listening to us at the last meeting. My concerns is one thing, we do have a grocery store. It's called Skip's. And Skip has bought that property and he is buying the unit next to him to expand to answer the needs of Basalt. And it's a great grocery store and they like to stay where they are. One of the things that I saw last week or 2 weeks ago was the pathways throughout that development. But I feel like it's a development to keep people in only one section of Basalt, and that's this section. And we should have a development that creates a walkway, a pedestrian, of the whole town of Basalt to make it all one. Right now, the other part of Basalt, you know, toward the frying pan, struggles with retail. And I think we need to do we should have an incredibly pedestrian-friendly town instead of a motivated automobile town. And that's the way that this development is right in the middle of the town. It's a big thing for us, and we need to get it right. And I agree with the last person that it is a little too large still. And I don't really, I don't think we need another sterile village in the town of Basalt. We need to connect it. And I also think there should be a traffic study on what's going to happen with all these other developments, with the Stott Mills and all the other Mid-Valley stuff in Shadowbrook and down there by Kodiak. And it's going to really cause a problem. When I go down to Willits at 4 o'clock, I see people from 82 going through every single neighborhood to avoid the traffic. And so every neighborhood's got a lot of traffic for a few hours. I don't want that to happen in downtown Basalt. I don't think it needs to happen. We already have people parking at other places. The other question is, many times I've been at these meetings, we talk about affordable housing. So is affordable housing, is that a permanent? Are those units that are supposedly affordable, is that permanently affordable? Or is it just affordable for the first time that they're sold, and then in the future, they get to go on the free market? I've heard affordable housing so much over my 45 years of living in Basalt, and I still don't see affordable housing. One or two things may have been at the beginning, but it's not now. So that's something I think we need to consider. I'm a landlord. I understand the rental business, and I have probably the least expensive rental unit in town. And, I know what people can afford and what they can't afford, including a single person and including a couple or a family. I've had plenty of experience.
I'm sorry, your time is.
All right.
Is
But
up,
anyway,
but just put your mind at ease. These are permanent impairments on deed that
Yeah, so
restrict
these are
for-
just my concerns of the whole thing.
Yeah,
the
these
whole
are
development.
permanent
So thank you, I
restrictions.
appreciate it.
Thanks. Anyone else care to, Kathleen?
It's me again. Kathleen Cole, live at 589 East Cypress Drive here in Basalt. I've been here 23 years. Owned a business for 13. I still have issues with the parking and the traffic flow over there, and I know traffic studies are really expensive. I was on my way to play pickleball last week, and I tried to buzz into BLT to grab a breakfast burrito, and I could not. I stayed there for a long time trying to make a left turn into the parking lot, and then when I tried to exit, the people are they're not even coasting through the four-way stop, and coming and going, and it's a mess over there. So I don't know what that answer is going to be, but think that we may have an issue with that. I think my biggest concern at this point is that I think that this is the most important venue, corner in our whole town. And I still don't see adequate outdoor space, dwelling space, community space. It still seems like a parking lot to me. Now, I haven't seen a map to scale, and it would be really helpful, I think, if you guys could poll out where your outdoor space is, right? You know, what you're planning right now. Demarc it so that we can see how far it extends out into the parking lot, where those parking spaces are going to be. Because I see only a 4-unit reduction in size, and you say you may reduce the parking spaces, but I still hate to see a parking lot in that corner. I don't know. I know it's expensive, but it just seems that we need to be sensitive to the scale of this town, and it's difficult enough to swallow an immense building right there, but to have that compounded with just parking, and I know there's islands, landscape islands, but it still doesn't feel right to me, and I'm just it doesn't feel pedestrian oriented, I guess. And I guess the other thing that I haven't seen anything from Bach, so I don't understand what an affordable housing unit. I mean, now we're going to have a lot of studios. Is that really adequate for a teacher or a firefighter? 450 square feet? I mean, does Bach have they done surveys? Has anybody done surveys? I don't know. I'm just asking.
We're not, this isn't a dialogue, we're just here to hear your comments, Kathleen.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway, those are my biggest concerns. I still don't like the project. I just think it's too big and too, not enough outdoor space. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else care to address council on CSE project? Susan or Pam, do we have anybody calling in?
Just as an announcement, there is on the first sheet on the agenda package, it says to text me if you have trouble getting in. I know we have one attendee. Do they have their hand up, Pam?
She's just raised her hand, yes.
Okay, so while we're having her speak, just to note that there is a link on here that you can join the Zoom meeting and get on the attendee list, or you could call 1-346-248-7799, and the webinar ID is 863-0759-7992. So with that, I guess we'll put the attendee on.
Yes. Hello. Hi, my name is Andrea Morales, and I am a resident of Basalt. I live at 100 Elk Run Drive. I've been in this valley now for 17 and a half years, and over 13 of those have been spent living in Basalt. I've been currently at my same address for 9 years, and I love this town. It's an amazing town. It's an amazing walking town. There's a few points that I would like to get to as quickly as I can. I heard Tim say that there's going to be long-term rental in this project he's proposing. He said no less than 6 months. Anybody who needs affordable housing, who really is a resident of Basalt, is going to need a place that's affordable for longer than 6 months. 6 months kind of leaves that open for anybody who's living out of the state and is a part-time worker to get a rental there in downtown Basalt. One of the other points I'd like to make is on that riverfront property where all of the mobile homes used to be. It took many years for the town council to approve on any of the structures that were built there, because it was such a gem to finally see the riverfront property again. It was very important to everybody and how that property was developed. I think that the Clark's Market is absolutely the same. It's very important to be mindful of what's going in there and think of the long-term ramifications for the entire town of Basalt. The traffic, and all of the years I've lived here, I do a lot of services with the people in Basalt. I have acupuncture. I go to the market at Skips. It is better for me to either walk or take my bike because the congestion has become so much over the past 5 years. It's very, very difficult to find parking. And now it's difficult to find parking morning, noon, afternoon, and night. I want to go back to that riverfront property. One of the ideas that people had, because at that point people were like, we need to stimulate the economy in Basalt. Trader Joe's kept coming up, and people said, we don't have enough parking to have a Trader Joe's. It just can't, we don't have the parking, and we don't have the infrastructure to do underground parking. So we're talking about a grocery store. What's changed from then to now? There's more people living here. There's more people using services in the downtown corridor. So I'm really curious about what's happened with the parking situation when it's only become more congested. But yeah, I think that's about all that I wanted to add to this. 4 stories is crazy. There's so many beautiful views all around Basalt, and anybody who lives here, anybody who works here, understands just what a gem this is in this valley, and what a wonderful place it is to be a resident here. So let's be mindful on how we develop this area. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. It is 3 stories now, not 4. So, okay, anyone else? Is there anyone else queued up?
Pam, I don't have anybody, and no one texted me that they couldn't get in.
No, I have no one else sitting in the attendees section.
All right, then we'll close the public hearing, and we'll go back to comments from council, questions. What is your pleasure relative to questions, comments, process? It's all fair game.
I have just a couple questions and comments. Can we go over the rental again? You say 60% is gonna be 12-month?
Sure. Nothing's changed. We just wanted to bring that back to what it was. So of the entire unit count, all of them,
Yep.
60% of those will always have at least 12-month leases.
And what will the other ones have?
Anything less. Not more, probably, but it could be less.
Sometime,
It cannot be short-term rental either, Ryan.
Minimum rental's 30 days, right? Correct?
Yeah, so somewhere between 30 and the 6-month mark is potentially there for the other 40%. We don't expect any of it to happen that way, Ryan, because if you rent a unit, you're going in for 12 months. You might have an exception or two, which we've seen over the years, and so it accommodates some of those exceptions. If there's a desire, kind of within your question, to see that 60% be pumped up higher, we're fine with that. It's not been an issue for us. And I think we said that a couple weeks ago, that was just a round number to go with. The other issue is the 60. So does that address your question?
Yeah, that addresses it, but that still leaves like, I get you're not saying it's not gonna be short-term rental, but I think, I know in town, there's a lot of 1-month rentals that happen.
At Lumen, we rented up the 32 units. We had 2 that were less than.
They were like 4 6-month rentals.
Less than a 12-month deal, and they were kind of hardship. They needed a place for the summer, and we accommodated that.
Okay.
Usually is a hardship kind of thing, usually.
No, I get it.
I mean,
just wanted to clarify.
That's how it operates. It's, in terms of it being a kind of some big open door for short-term or less than 6-month rentals, but more than 30 days, we can address that if that's a concern, because it's not one of ours.
And these also aren't the type of units that people come in and rent for I don't know, short term, or does that make sense?
No,
the
I,
people
but I
that are
don't
living
think
in
that
these-
makes sense in the fact that in the economy we're in now, someone that lives somewhere else and can come here for a month and live in downtown Basalt would definitely take you guys up on that. So that's where I know that's not what you're going towards, but that does leave the door open to not short-term, but
Happy to further address that.
yeah,
That's fine.
I think that's what we're hearing from that is,
yeah,
there's a hole there, look at fixing something.
awesome.
The other thing that happens with short-term rentals, Ryan, is they don't have furniture. So there's a whole furniture, there's all kinds of things that go on with that short-term rental stuff. And it's just, it's not part of our operation.
Totally get that. How many, you said you'd have less parking spots. Do you know how many less you would have?
We were able to trim back parking by 8, based on the 66 units being the target number.
Would you be clear, the parking demand or the parking spaces?
I'm sorry, I assume your question was about parking demand.
Well, I was saying space. I thought
Because the number of parking spaces has not changed.
Okay.
We
Right.
still have the same available 16 out in the surface lot area from the homeowner association, and we still have the ability to do 62 spaces inside the building, under the building.
So you haven't technically changed the number of parking you're making, you just have less demand.
Correct.
Less units.
And to be clear, as we presented before, the parking demand from the proposed building, because we add all the spaces at the grade level, is less on the surrounding areas than the existing commercial when it's tenanted, if that makes sense.
A question for the town would be, they said in their letter that they would like to divert some of the ongoing maintenance to us, or like I guess what would, at the next reading, would you have a guess of dollar amount that we would be spending to make this project go? Is that a valid question?
Was that for maintenance or infrastructure?
Well, just the way they line it.
The landscape.
It's for our public.
Yeah, the public right away, that it seemed like they're giving
Yeah.
back to us.
Well, when
Or
we,
was that always on us and it's
we
just
maintain
worded
the
now?
landscape up top.
Okay,
today.
yeah.
And then, staff did have some issue with paying for the infrastructure associated with the building. And, we felt that, we're allowing the use of our property to accommodate parking spaces over there, and that, our contribution for infrastructure, we were willing to open up a conversation and see where council was with the PIF, versus contributing from the town's budget, which we just felt, given our very robust capital improvements planning over the next few years, we just don't have wiggle room to be paying for infrastructure.
Okay. So
Does that answer your question?
no, not really, because
Well,
I guess it's just the way I'm reading it. It's number 3 in their letter about the site improvements and ongoing maintenance is on town property, specifically landscape berm and between Two Rivers Road and the HOA parking lot. If the changes to the vehicle entry are deemed necessary, the town will absorb those costs in giving the entry situated on town property.
So that was sort of more paying for the entry reconfiguration over there, which we felt was borne by the changes in the nature of the development.
Okay.
So that was
We
more the
have-
developer cost.
Okay, but doesn't that become our cost then? No? Or you're saying it's still on them?
Not for the infrastructure itself, for the cost of making those changes. And then I think if there are, along the berm, up top,
Yeah.
there's contemplated to be a pedestrian access coming down, which is, a developer cost, but then adjacent to that berm, I presume a lot of that remains unchanged, or perhaps some of the landscaping gets enhanced, but I think we'd be open to having that discussion of continuing to maintain that.
I guess it's what costs are being deflected to the town and the changes in this.
It'd be the installation of the initial improvement, because the ongoing maintenance of that berm is already with the town.
Okay.
I mean, roughly, that's how I'd describe that. You
But
okay with
you-
that, Ryan?
But you were presenting it as
You
you
would,
were
you
doing
would
it.
cover the installation?
We're asking that the town handle its own cost of, the cost of installing the improvements to the berm, and potentially, if there's a change to the access, Glenn, on the road cut, if those things, which are both on town property,
But
there's
those
no.
changes benefit your development.
Yeah,
Okay.
And I guess my question was, that wasn't in the first presentation, right? You were, or was that how it was
No,
presented? I missed that.
that's accurate, Ryan. That's a,
It-
And
no,
we
it-
we
no.
don't know how much,
To be,
you know, I would hesitate,
That's
given
fine.
what we know about cost, to try to estimate what that was. I think what
Oh.
we were kind of proposing was,
Mike, sorry.
oh, I guess, we were kind of proposing that we look at a PIF, for the, and that the money from the PIF could go and reimburse them for the expenditures, but we were not proposing that we pick up the cost because we didn't think we had the money, for one reason.
Okay.
so to be clear, yes, it is a change.
Yeah.
There's also one fewer story in a smaller building, fewer units, smaller units, more affordable housing.
But
That's there's a number of changes.
totally understand. I was just trying to get that changed. And then, I think I've asked this before, but there's no chance we can do underground parking, whether it's just not cost effective at all, even if in a public-private partnership, is that even?
There's water, I think.
that water's been monitored there for years, Ryan. I think we're about 3 feet below the asphalt level. We've had 6 or 8 borings there that we've been able to monitor. So is it possible? Anything's possible.
Time and money.
But it's an extraordinarily expensive undertaking to not only dig it out, and believe me, there's water all over there. We're seeing it on the other project. And build it and then maintain and keep it pumped out continuously. It'd be expensive and very energy consumptive to continue to pump water out. And that's why we kept it on ground level and put the building over top of it.
All good.
Yep.
And I appreciate you guys coming to the table.
Sure, thanks.
So, Gary,
Yeah, well, I do appreciate listening and not making this, very painful. You actually listened and took a big difference. I'd love to know, what is the height differential between the 3rd floor and 2nd floor? What was the height last time, and what's the height now? Or are you gonna be able to do that at the next meeting?
The height last time was 49 feet, which was what CSC allowed for
Okay.
a 4-story building with a grocery store inside of it. We have not done the studies yet to do the cross sections, and we still want we want the housing in total to still have something like 8.5 or 9 foot ceiling heights. We also were aware that the grocery level was a little thin, a little shallow, and we may want to add another foot or 2 to that. In the end, I think we're going to be no higher than 45 feet. We may even be closer to 40 feet, but we haven't done that work yet.
Okay. It would be great to see, because it was that one rendering from behind Alpine Bank
Yeah.
that really was like the eye-opener going, because I was here when we did the master plan, and I do, believe that there should be some density on this. But when I saw that density, I was like, whoa, that's a significant change for the town that would be difficult to bear. And now I'd love to see it, I appreciate you coming to the table, taking out of the Rita, actually leaving the Rita, but going up to the max on what the town requires. I do appreciate that.
Thanks.
The PIF thing, I've never been a fan of PIFs, to reimburse. I'd like some clarity on that for the next when we really talk about this. What are we looking at for a PIF and all of that?
There was some misunderstanding, I think, right there with that discussion of PIF just minutes ago that I might want to address and help.
Okay.
So there's a public improvement fee is PIF.
Yeah, I know.
And that, and in this context, a PIF is an additional amount at the checkout line of, in this case, 1% on top of the sales taxes. That 1% gets diverted and ultimately comes back to the development group. It's common, it's done at Willits, in an environment where there's about an 8% sales tax rate already, which there is. The additional 1% is considered doable. As soon as you get above 10%, like you're at Lowe's and Target, start to get into hot water as a perception. That's privately imposed if we want it to be. It doesn't need to have a policy around that from public, because that can simply be an imposition on the lease as a requirement of the tenant. The sales tax split was something different, entirely different, and that had to do with within that sales tax money to be collected in the future, that the town, the customer would only pay that 8%-ish number, 8.2 or 8.3. But to the extent that there is additional sales tax revenues collected by the town is benchmarked against what's happening there today, that would be split 50-50. So that is within the town's operating budget that there'd be
It's like a tax.
No,
increment.
I totally
Share of
get that.
tax.
I just wanted to clarify what the PIF is gonna truly be, because my concern is yes, I go to Lowe's and I see the PIF, and, you know, that's a pretty steep little shot there
It is.
to handle that. So clarifying, you know, what the PIF would be, because
A PIF can be privately imposed, though. That's, I think
Right.
we're going off on a rise, thinking this is a public debate and a publicly approved item. I don't think it is. I think that's between landlord and tenant.
okay.
Tell me if I'm wrong, Jeff, please. At Willits, we realized that it wasn't an issue publicly.
Yeah, I might want to come back to council with more information on that. I mean, I think
Fine. I don't wanna
there
get it
are
wrong.
often
Waters.
parameters on what a PIF, the amount, caps as to what it can, when it might sunset, when it might meet a certain amount. So there's a lot of things that can go into that PIF. If we need to bring back more information on that, I'm
Right,
happy to
that's
do
all
that.
I wanted, was more
Sure.
information on where you're going with that, to understand it a little better, because
Where we're going is 1% on top of sales that are taxable anyway.
to the reimbursement amount, and then the PIF goes away, correct?
No,
The PIF stays forever?
perpetuity.
The idea is to help fund, we've got very uncertain sewer costs, we've got uncertain development costs, and that's, as we've scaled back the building, we're trying to find ways to make sure that these get covered.
Okay.
But
Good,
there
because-
usually is a sunset, that's certainly something that's in the concept.
Well, yeah, okay. Just more clarity on that, to really understand that.
Sure.
I'm good.
Okay, anyone else? Glenn? David?
So, and the PIF and the infrastructure and all that stuff, that's all in the next stage. We can figure out the details on that too, right? Because that's when you're gonna discover how much infrastructure costs you would have if you get to that point and all that. So, one thing is, the RETA, and we keep talking about the RETA, in the notes, it says that it's being removed, but I heard it's staying, and I agree it should stay, and so I just wanna make sure the packet, you know, reflects that next time and everything, just 'cause that's a pretty important point. I think the changes are good, the 3 stories. I think it's all gonna come, I'd love to see, you know, and I'm looking forward to seeing the renderings and what you have next time as far as height and all that stuff, because that's really where it's gonna matter, and we're gonna have a clear idea of what the project looks like. And the 25% affordable housing, good. I still think we still look in the future about what we can do together to increase the amount of affordable housing in there, because it's, again, it's the prime spot for it, as people have said multiple times. So, looking forward to the next time.
Great. Glenn?
I wanted to say, you know, thanks for working with us. You guys have come back good. The one stickler I would be on is as far as like the cost split with the town and infrastructure goes. If it's for your guys' benefit and you're making the change, you're gonna have to absorb the cost, whether it's done through a PIF. I'm not a fan of them, but I get where you're coming from. I understand that, you know, at the end of the day, you're here to make money, but, so that's worth discussing further. And then on height, I think Gary has like probably the most important thing is like, yeah, if we come down from 4 stories to 3 stories, but we only change 4 foot in height, we gotta make people feel like there's actually a height difference.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, we're anxious to get into that.
Okay.
I
So,
totally
but
agree.
otherwise, you know, like I
Yeah.
say, you guys, good job on actually addressing everything that we've discussed and
Thanks.
having a conversation with us.
Anyone else? Bill
Sure.
Infante.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but your heads must be spinning, because 2 years ago, all we talked about was vitality. It was like vitality and preservation of open space. And now that you guys have made a lot of concessions and you have a proposal that could bring a lot of vitality, suddenly it's not enough. But I want to applaud the concessions you guys have made. I think you are, through the design of the grocery store, I think taking a big step to making Basalt a destination for food, arts, and culture. So that's great, and I think it will satisfy everyone's need for whatever incidental groceries on a day-to-day basis, but in a much better and more responsive way to a town's character. So I think that's a very, very cool thing. The addition of the affordable housing, this has also consumed so much of our discussion, so thank you for increasing the fraction and the number of affordable housing units. It goes a little bit of the distance to addressing the demand. The big issue that I think we are dancing around, whether we're talking about a PIF or the sales tax share, was about making the project financially viable. So whether you do it by a PIF or the earlier proposed 50-50 sales tax split, it's all driving towards greater financial viability. So I would suggest you speak to staff, because we are, as a town, deeply committed to supporting affordable housing. There will be a question put to our residents this November, and it is for the purpose of raising funds, for the purpose of financing some angle or some element, some dimension of affordable housing. So I suggest that that might provide some opportunities to address the problem without imposing an additional tax. And the PIF is, Glenwood is suffering under what is 10.5%, 11.5% aggregate sales tax, and PIFs don't go away. At least that's been Glenwood's experience. I guess, you know, the RETA, I had a lot to say about the RETA in the last meeting discussion, but it seems like a straw man proposal. I mean, the building's not going to change hands that often. So offering a RETA, thank you, but I don't think we're going to see that much revenue derived from a transaction assessment. Parking is going to be the big issue from my perspective, and things that I read in the paper. You're going to need to do more, but more, in my opinion, doesn't come down to more spaces. It comes down to more and better enforcement. And this is my observation from my own office in the Willits Bend town center. It's mixed use residential commercial, which is what you guys have. In Colorado, a residence defines their available parking as a car, an off-road vehicle, a trailer for their raft, and maybe another parking space. And in the absence of enforcement, frankly, you do end up with great congestion and great problems that will, in my opinion, spill out into the town, because that's also happened at Willits Bend. It was among the concerns that were expressed in conjunction with other projects. So I think we, as the town, are going to have to be willing to enforce our own parking regulations. And that means enforcing a 2-hour parking limit, if that's what it is. If we don't want to enforce it, then we should change it or do something else. But the problem is, at least in part, in my opinion, about enforcement, not simply the nominal number of parking spaces. And this is something that the town will have to work with you on.
Yeah. Okay. Comments?
Okay. Others?
I just have a couple of quick ones. I would love to see, I think Kathleen had brought it up, but the overlay of your current, like your development proposal over what is here now.
For the
The
pedestrian,
actual
the
layout.
patio area?
Yeah, I just think that would be super helpful in being able to
We could mark
see it
that.
spatialized. I'm sure it won't take much
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that. And then for the next meeting, I would love if we could get, and I think this is probably on us, the town, would be a breakdown of what they're saying with the affordable housing. There's X number at category 3, X number at category 1, just like a quick grid of what's that gonna, what those rents are, what units, et cetera. I think that would be super helpful. just to push it forward.
Is it different than what you put in the thing? Because it said,
I think that,
it says the initial 11 are gonna propose to be, the initial 11 are supposed to be category 3, where now the initial 11 are deed restricted or category 1. So I just, clarify
yeah,
that.
and then James, I think, sent out a subsequent email about the rental rates, but we'll repackage it for you. Yeah.
How do we end
Yeah,
up
yeah.
picking what rates
Yeah.
they are?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
okay.
we can provide
Well, the rates
kind
are
of
all
our,
set, affordable housing?
yeah.
I know, but
Thanks.
how is it determined?
It's off like median income.
But we've,
Yeah,
done
I
by
get
block.
that. I get that, but like, how do we choose, how many are
Oh.
category 3? How many are category 2? How
Well, I
many are
think
category?
We've got
they
that.
get,
No.
they get to choose.
11 are
You guys-
category 1 and 7 are category 3, right?
And so you guys just randomly pick that however.
No, it's,
Well, no, there is an
no,
expert.
Glenn, let me clarify. The proposal was we're meeting code with 15% category 1 and a RETA, and going above and beyond to 25% with category 3.
Okay.
That's what's in the memo.
It just is a little bit of background. We were supporting, instead of moving to category 2, as leaving the original ones as category 1, because we've learned in the Real America project that Basalt employees take those category 1 units, and there's more local employees in the Real America project than there are, for example, in the Willits Town Center, which has more folks that are commuting up to Aspen in the affordable housing units, because they're more expensive, so.
Yeah,
But we can give you, James can go into that in more detail at the next meeting.
Just like a quick
Yeah.
one sheet.
Yep.
Would be super
I think in
helpful.
the end, they're capped. Those 25%, that's kind of the message. In the end, it's your numbers. and
I'd
they
still
count.
like to see the details.
Oh, yeah, well,
Any other questions, comments? So what is the council's pleasure? We want to see this one more time before we take action
have
on the
to.
sketch?
Yeah, we got to.
So tonight,
I got it. Mayor, I move the town council continue the public hearing on resolution number 38, series of 2021 to the meeting on October 12th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Making good progress here, so we'll see you on the 12th.
And just a reminder, this was a two-step process, and the other one that you saw was a three-step process.
In the town code,
That's why you see so much more detail
There's
this
certain
time around.
Square feet.
well, it has to
What's
be certain amount.
the reason for the
category
difference
1,
between
category
two-step
2,
or three-step?
category-
Well,
He's not have been really
the
part of
PUD
it.
process
If
is a
you make more
three-step
category
process,
1,
and he
then-
went with the CSC. The
Someone else
CSC
county,
has a
they could've
two-step
come back and
process.
said,
It was
okay,
sort of
we're
an
gonna go
incentive at the
Yeah.
time
category
to
one,
reduce the
6
amount of
category
time to
two,
get
and
across the
two
finish
category
line
3 and
right,
stuff.
as long as
Or
it continues.
that vitality.
Yeah.
So this way, they're trying to find ways to do it.
Thank you, everybody.
But also.
Are we adjourned?
Yes.
No more items on the agenda.
It's a very unique way of dealing with it. I just,
Doesn't make